Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to Stinchfield. It is great to have you here. Oh, this is going to be wild. Thank you very much, Harry, for that. We are at a great event here in Grapevine, Texas. We're going to do a little special edition of Stinchfield today as we start to welcome people in to the ballroom here at the Gaylord Texan for a very special event where Geert Wilders from the Netherlands, a huge conservative voice, will be speaking. It's not often that we get two, I would call them key speakers in Steve Bannon and, of course, Glenn Beck, all in the same evening along with Geert Wilders. And we're going to take you all the way through till 9 o'clock Central Time tonight, folks. So this is going to be a great event. If you could, at back at the studio, the guys behind the glass, take a cut of the ballroom. I want to show you what a fabulous job Patriot Mobile has done to set this up as people start to flow into this ballroom. And we're going to recruit some of the people in the audience here today as well as we lead into our show to ask some questions. We'll rock and roll. In just a moment, I'm going to have Maureen Bannon, obviously Steve Bannon's daughter, come up and talk to me. And my best buddy of all, Brian Glenn, is here to break some things down. But before we do that, I do want to get to the news today. We have new video out of the ICE agent-involved shooting in Minneapolis. Now, I made it clear that this was a 100% justified shooting. There's reasons why I made it clear, because the officer felt threatened. It doesn't matter what the intentions of the driver were. I actually believe there's a good chance she was trying to run the ICE agent over. That doesn't matter, folks. What matters is what the ICE agent thought. And now we know that he was directly in front of this car. How do we know that? His own cell phone video footage. Let's roll that clip in its entirety so you can see exactly what this officer was experiencing the moments before he made those shots.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you.
That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Whoa!
Now, as you watch that, there is no debate that he was in the pathway of this vehicle. And mind you, that ICE agent months before was dragged about 50 feet down the road. So think of his mindset at the time. Now, it's interesting because you got those on the left that want to come out and somehow make a villain out of the ICE agent when you have a liberal agitator in a lesbian relationship, whatever you want to make of that, dropping their kid off at school and then making their career of going around and getting in the way of ICE agents. I mean, what world are we living in where that's what you do after you drop your kid off at school? And so now you have the left making this woman out to be their George Floyd, out to be their poster child, when I remember Irina Zarutska. Think about that young woman on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina. I did everything I could to keep her memory alive. She was brutally murdered on a train, and the left wanted to forget her. And instead, what do we have? Left-wing lunatics that are in charge of cities like Mayor Fry in Minneapolis that comes out even after seeing the new video and says things like this.
Take my word for it. Don't take their word for it. Watch the video from every single angle. I mean, the ICE agent walked away with a hip injury that he might as well have gotten from closing a refrigerator door with his hips.
So that's what we get from those on the left. My buddy Brian Glenn is with us now. Brian, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you. I've got a couple fans out there, I guess.
You got a lot of fans. I would say welcome to Texas, but you're a Texan, so
that's
you're
right.
home.
McKinney, Texas, just right up the 121. I got a house there. I love it.
All right, you especially, even more than I do, have to deal with some of these left-wing lunatics when you're out on the street. What do you make of the situation in Minnesota? What do you think the left's goal is right now?
I think these activists have been empowered. We've seen what happened in California. We've seen what's happened in Seattle and Portland and around the country. These activists, paid activists, mind you, feel empowered to do what they do. Stand in the freeways, get in people's faces, spit and throw things at ICE agents and law enforcement officers. So they feel a sense of protection as well, that they are well funded. They will be defended in court if anything comes up. But unfortunately, things end tragically. And I agree with you. I watched that video, Grant, probably 100 times. And I tried to put myself in everyone's foot. You do not stand or you do not accelerate towards an officer if he's in front of your car.
You know, a lot of people don't know. I'm not a police officer, but I've been through police training. I'm certified in advanced patrol tactics. I've been through basic SWAT. I've trained with some of the most badasses in the world, like Navy SEALs. And a lot of people don't understand what goes into that moment, the split-second decision you have to make. I'm not saying another officer may not have fired his weapon. Another officer may not have. Another officer may have jumped out of the way and decided not to. But that is not the standard of whether you decide whether he was right or wrong to fire his weapon. And you'll often hear those on the left say that, oh, well, why didn't they shoot him in her in the shoulder or shoot the gun out of their hand? These are ridiculous notions when your blood pressure is pumping. And I use the example, Brian, I went through a simulation where I knew it was a fake deal in a like virtual reality situation. They didn't tell me they would fire little plastic pellets at me. Never told me that. When we get down in this scene and the suspect gets out of his car and starts firing at us and pellets are coming at me, my blood pressure went from 68 beats a minute to 132 beats a minute. Now, I knew it was a fake situation. Imagine a police officer in that, what they have to do within the split-second decisions they have to make.
And you said this before. The officer had a previous incident where he was dragged from a car. He was going after a sexual predator. 33 stitches in his legs, leg injuries as well. So he's recovering from that. So from his standpoint, this is him being dragged down the road 2.0. That's right. That's how he reacted.
That's exactly right. Let me play a clip for you, Brian. You know, I talk about blind liberal zombieism, and I think it becomes on full display when we have situations like this. You know, you would think it would be commonplace that everybody would say it's a tragedy that Irina Zarutska, that woman I talked about in North Carolina, was killed, but they don't. You would think people could see at least that this man was in the way of was in the way of her car that's coming at him. He's got to defend himself, but they don't. And I'm going to give you an example of why they don't. This woman is typical of what America faces today. Watch this.
Feels kind of wrong being here in some way. I don't know why.
Why do you think? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Like where that stems from. Like I mean, part of it is being like a white woman that. I'm privileged and I have a lot of privilege. So I feel like white tears are not always something that's helpful or necessary.
So she says she has white tears, tears of white privilege. What does that have to do with anything here? And that's their responses.
Yeah. Well, she went to probably any major university in this country to learn that. You know, that's what happens when some of our kids go off to school. They learn to forget everything that the parents have instilled in them. But unfortunately, that is the mindset of the left. They apologize for everything. They've got this guilt they drive around. They don't like this country. They certainly don't like you and I. And apparently they don't like law enforcement keeping the letter of the law.
I would offer up that violence is their number one way that they want to achieve their goals. Yeah. There was a town hall last night, a Black Lives Matter activist. And here's another example. Brian, how was the left not realize that Black Lives Matter is a sham of an organization?
I met a gentleman that sat next to me on a plane a couple of weeks ago. He lives in the very neighborhood this took place. They are waiting for stuff like this. He told me, Grant, you're not going to believe this. During the Summer of Love, when they burned down neighborhoods, the business owners in those neighborhoods paid activists to actually burn their businesses down. They wanted to collect insurance on it. And this is what he told me up and down. It was the truth. These people are deranged. They love violence. They're getting paid to do it.
They do. And they're egged on by their liberal leaders. And that's the reality of the situation. All right, Brian, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the soundbite here in a moment. I would like it if you could maybe recruit some people. I'd love to hear their thoughts. Got a chance, folks, out here in the crowd to be on Real America's Voice in a moment, if you would like. I see some hands going up. Brian's going to go out there. Maybe we go meet over where our camera is over there, and we'll take some of your questions, hear your thoughts on Minnesota, and then while you go do that, Brian, I'm going to get Maureen Bannon up, Steve Bannon's daughter, a great hero herself, and while I get Maureen up here, let me play for you the clip of this Black Lives Matter activist that, to me, sums up what they really want.
Streets down. Yes. Again. Make the city pay. Again. And again. That was not about losing money when George Floyd died. We as a people can cause them to lose more money now.
Make the city pay again. What do you think that means, folks? I'll tell you what it means. It means they want the city burned down just like they did with George Floyd. Maureen Bannon, great to have you.
Thank you so much, Grant, for having me up here. But yeah, you're right. Thank you, guys. But I think you're right, that they want exactly what happened in 2020. And I know Governor Walz said he's not running again, but he's still in control of the city. And he let Minneapolis burn in 2020, and he's going to try and do it again.
Maureen, you served in the United States military, and God bless you for that. We now see Governor Tim Walz saying he's going to activate the National Guard, not to defend the shopkeepers from lunatics like you just saw on your screen from burning down an AutoZone or a mom and pop shop, but he's going to activate the National Guard to protect the citizens of Minneapolis from ICE agents.
Well, I mean, Tim Walz, isn't he Mr. Stolen Valor? Didn't he lie about his military service record? So I don't put it past him to try and activate the National Guard against ICE agents, but take it for what it is. You know, he's a traitor to this country, and he also wants our own National Guard to fight against our law enforcement. ICE are law enforcement officers. We need to be protecting them, so the National Guard should be protecting them, and if Tim Walz is going to activate them against them, we need to get him out of office as soon as possible, not within the next year, I mean ASAP.
You know, I did not serve in the United States military, but in some respects, I took a page out of Mark Kelly's book, The Traitorous Senator from Arizona.
The part of the Seditious Six?
Part of the Seditious Six. I wanted to give the same warning to the National Guard in Minnesota that you do not have to follow an illegal order, and I would offer up that President Trump has never given any illegal orders to our United States military, but ordering the National Guard to turn on a federal law enforcement agency would be an illegal order.
It would, and Trump can also trump Governor Tim Walz, so he can activate the National Guard to protect ICE agents in the state of Minnesota if he so chooses. But he needs to do that, in my opinion, so that Tim Walz doesn't activate them to go against ICE agents.
If I could ask the guys back behind the glass in Denver to cue up the video again, the new video of the ICE agent in front of the vehicle, just towards the end, so we see about 5 seconds before. And Maureen, I'm going to ask you to watch this because you served in the military, you carried a firearm, you've been in stressful situations. I want to ask you your reaction to seeing this this video when we play it. Watch this.
Get out of the car.
Maureen?
So first off, I don't know if you heard, but her wife, the driver's wife, told her, drive, baby, drive. So she encouraged her to put her foot on the gas pedal. And actually in the beginning of that video, I saw it earlier, the driver made direct eye contact with the law enforcement, with the ICE officer. She knew exactly what she was doing. She put her foot on the gas pedal and floored it towards the driver, or towards the ICE agent, and she hit him. It's not she almost hit him, she hit him. In that video, if it played a little bit longer, you would see the camera kind of drop because he is hit. So he was fully correct in shooting because his life was being threatened. That's what happens. If you're gonna drive a vehicle towards a law enforcement officer, they have the right to protect themselves at all means necessary.
What do you make of the left when they say that she was unarmed?
She was behind a motor vehicle. She got behind the wheel of the car and was driving it towards that officer and then hit him. He had every right to fire for his safety.
You know, it's interesting because one of the challenges that the prosecution is going to, well, there's no real prosecution in this because she's dead, right? So one of the challenges, I guess, in the court of public opinion that we will face there are people that hate the idea of death and violence. And I think we need people that hate the idea of death and violence. But the reality is it is a part of our life. And so you have, politically incorrect to say, but more often than not, soccer moms and beta males that don't understand the use of force in a situation like this. And the threat level, the continuum of use of force is an equal or greater force for the police officer. Equal or greater, correct?
Correct. I definitely agree, and I think, like, I stand by what I said. He had every right to fire because his life was being threatened. She floored the vehicle. She put her foot on the gas pedal and floored it towards him. He had every right to protect himself because his life was being threatened. All
right, you spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. Your father, he's still broadcasted out of D.C., right?
Yep.
He is. Yeah, God bless him. Your father, Steve, if you're here, come to Texas, man. We'll gladly welcome you.
He loves it in Texas.
But you spent a lot of time in Washington. I want to play a clip for you because Eric Swalwell, the congressman from California who slept with a spy, this is cut 9 for my guys back in Denver. I want you to hear Eric Swalwell, and then I'll get your response.
Okay.
You better believe that accountability is coming. Here's what it looks like. The masks are coming off. Identification is coming out. Immunity is going to be stripped. And to Kristi Noem, Tom Cashbag Homan, and Greg Bovino, your asses are going to be in these witness chairs.
May I remind you that he slept with a Chinese spy and he was on the intelligence committee. So I don't take much of what he says to heart.
Why is he still in office is my question. He shouldn't be there. He slept with a Chinese spy. And also, where's the accountability for all those that came after the right? Where's the accountability for all of those on the unselect and unjust January 6th committee that threw Peter Navarro and my father in prison for 4 months? Where's the accountability on them? And once we get them in the witness chairs, then we'll go in the witness chairs. So Eric Swalwell, you can just shut your mouth. No one cares about what you have to say.
I'm with you on that, Maureen, 100%. And I think, like most of us in this room, we are still waiting for a lot of accountability because what they put your father through, what they put Roger Stone through, Rudy Giuliani, I gotta go on and on. The list is endless. And we still really haven't had anyone pay for that. Eric Swalwell talked about immunity. I mean, I'd love to see them take away immunity from pharmaceutical companies, but not from police officers. If you're a police officer today and you're working in a blue city, and they pull your immunity away from doing your job or from things that happen while you're doing your job, they will take everything from you. Your life, your finances, your family, you name it.
And they don't even think about it. Think about it twice. They'll do it in a heartbeat.
And if you don't believe it, folks, this is Larry Krasner. Larry Krasner is a radical George Soros district attorney in Philadelphia. We didn't have a shooting in Philadelphia involving the ICE, but he's weighing in on this. Why? Because he's looking for clicks and likes, and he's trying to rile up his base. I want you to hear what he says now about ICE agents and what they may face in his city.
If any law enforcement agent, any ICE agent, is going to come to Philly to commit crimes, then you can get the F out of here. Because if you do that here, I will charge you with those crimes. You will be arrested. You will stand trial.
Go ahead, Maureen.
So why aren't they standing trial for allowing illegal aliens into this country? They're letting them into Philly.
100%.
That's a crime. Coming into this country illegally is a crime. So he needs to be prosecuted, arrested, charged, stand trial. Everything that he's saying that ICE agents are going to have to go through in his city, he needs to go through.
I would argue as well that not upholding your oath to office, you could make a criminal case against him by letting out so many of these criminals in Philadelphia that have done so much harm against American citizens. It's horrific. But if you listen to his words there very carefully, you know he's a lawyer, because what he says is if they come in here and commit crimes, now they're not committing crimes anywhere, but he uses that word, and nobody at home hears him say if they commit crimes. They haven't committed any crime.
Correct. Not at all. And even he's saying what happened in Minneapolis, if that happens in Philly, that he is going to arrest you and charge you. That was not a crime. That was self-defense. He was being attacked. His life was being threatened. That was self-defense.
So we have a supremacy clause that virtually does give this ICE agent immunity from being charged in Minneapolis, but I still do not put that by the Minneapolis prosecutors to try to do it. Just because they're not allowed to doesn't mean they won't try it. And that's what I'm scared of the most. All right, Maureen, will you hang out with me for a little longer?
I will.
Okay,
I will.
Great. And folks, if you have some questions, Brian Glenn is here. We're going to take a quick break, and a huge thanks to Patriot Mobile as we get ready for Glenn Beck, Steve Bannon, your father. Geert Wilders is the main attraction tonight. And we're going to take a quick break and then come back. And Brian, you've got some folks. All right, perfect.
First one?
Yeah. You?
Third.
Got any advice?
Get great life insurance for you and Mom. So if something happens, your family's protected.
I know nothing about life insurance.
You don't have to. Just call SelectQuote. They do the work and shop hundreds of policies tailored to your budget.
Know anything about diapers?
Change them. Often.
Protect your family's future by visiting SelectQuote.com for your free quote now with a licensed insurance agent.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Mac.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
America's in a fight for her soul. Our freedoms are under attack. Our values are being torn down, and the same corrupt elites who built this mess think they can silence us. The patriots who still believe in this country, not a chance. Here at Real America's Voice, we're standing shoulder to shoulder with AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, a movement that says we will not be silenced.
There is no force on earth that can stop us from saving our country.
The voice of millions of patriots who refuse to kneel to tyranny. This is the movement of fighters, men and women who still believe in God, family, and the American dream. The conservative alternative to AARP.
Real rights, they come from God.
If you're ready to stand up and join the fight, go to amac.us/RAV right now. That's amac.us/RAV, because this isn't just about politics. It's about saving America. Faith, freedom, America first. AMAC and Real America's Voice, united for the Republic.
Donald Trump Jr. here with an urgent message about retirement accounts in America. My father just changed 401ks forever by initiating the process that will allow gold into 401ks. But here's even better news. You don't need to wait for your 401k provider. You can use this strategy today. With a self-directed gold IRA from the Birch Gold Group, you can convert your IRA or 401k into an account with all the same tax benefits, but you own something that will be there when you need it. To find out more, click the link below to get a free info kit on gold IRAs from my trusted friends at the Birch Gold Group. Inside, they will show you exactly how to diversify your IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. Do it now before the rest of America jumps in. Click below for your free info kit.
Back, everybody. Grant Stinchfield here from this very special event at the Gaylord Texan. Thanks to Patriot Mobile for putting it on. I am joined by a very good friend of mine. Bill, you and I go way back.
We do.
One of the best law enforcement officers, I was going to say in Texas, but really in the country. You do such a fabulous job. Bill Wayburn is the sheriff of Tarrant County, and one of the largest, if not the largest, Republican county in the country.
Largest one in the country.
Sheriff, I'm going to ask you, what do you make of the Minneapolis shooting, what this ICE agent is going through, and what the left is accusing him of?
Well, any of these shootings are always tragic, but I watched that video over and over and over again because I wanted to know the truth. And what you had is somebody 100% resisting law enforcement, was not obeying law enforcement, and was driving a 2,500-pound missile. And you can question his tactics all day, but he had a right to be where he was at, and she was, no question, could care less about his safety and was trying to run over it.
You know, I had said earlier that another cop may not have fired, but that's not the standard, is it?
That's right. It's not what I would have done, but what somebody could have done, and that was to shoot.
Yeah. I want to go over to Brian Glenn. Brian, you have somebody with us today. Why don't we go out to Brian, and who do you got for us, Brian?
All right, thanks, Grant. I'm going to bring this gentleman over here. First of all, what's your name, where you're from?
Bill. From Houston.
Bill from Houston. Okay, you brought up an excellent point about Minnesota and about the left. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, this is a terrible time for this self-defense incident to happen for the left, because it's just spotlighting like a laser pointer the Somali problem that they have there in Minnesota, right in the Minneapolis area, and it's just giving people a double dose of just thinking about these Somalis are there, the ICE was there to remove them, and then this lady's there to protest, and she attacks the officer, and it's a bad time for them.
It is, and a lot of independents might come over to the Republican Party.
I think so, and I heard some people said, well, that tampon Tim Walz, he's breathing a sigh of relief because this is taking the eye off of the problem that they were finding with all the fraud that he's probably connected to, and I think it doesn't. I think it's just another double dose of the because it brings you right back. That's why the police officers were there. They were there to remove the Somalis, and it just highlights that.
Thank you so much for coming up. One more, if we can, real quick, 30 seconds. What's your name, where you're from?
My name is Deborah Hensley. I live in Crescent.
What's your question or comment?
My concern is Ilhan Omar had put an earmark in a bill, and it was found by Chip Roy and his team, and then Senator Ernst brought it up. But she is not being prosecuted for that. They kicked Santos, a Republican, out of Congress. And what she was doing was perpetrating fraud. And I'd like to know why she hasn't been kicked out of Congress.
That is an excellent question. I have asked President Trump many times about Ilhan Omar, and of course, his comments are on the record. Grant, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Brian. To answer her question, I'll tell you what, I think it's because members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats alike, don't have the stones in large numbers in order to go after their own. And that's part of the sad reality of where we are in Washington today. We're about ready, folks, to start this show. So if you would begin to take your seats, that would be great. We're going to kick this off directly at the bottom of the hour. But I'll ask you, Sheriff Wayburn, because I drove up here today, and I saw more cop cars and cruisers than I've seen in a long time. And I couldn't help but think, here we are, we got Steve Bannon here, we got Glenn Beck here, we got my man Brian here, I'm here, we have so many dignitaries here. After what happened to Charlie Kirk, we need a police presence like this. It's not a gun-free zone in here. There were metal detectors. I had to go check my gun. I'm not going to tell which car I'm driving, but in the car. But it's not a gun-free zone. We got a lot of guns in this room, and it's law enforcement that has them. And I want everyone out there to give a big thanks to law enforcement. We got a lot of them here, and maybe you could just tell me what it's like to be a cop today in this war on cop world.
Well, thank you. And you've been a great voice for us for many, many years and a great friend, and thank you for that. Is that, you know, today is police officers have to have their head on a swivel all the time, and it doesn't matter if they're on duty or even when they're off duty. We just had one ambushed in Austin walking across a parking lot. So it is game on all the time. They have to watch where they're at and who they're around because they're always in the fight.
Well, thank God your officers are in Tarrant County, where a prosecutor isn't going to be worse than a brutal gangbanger when it comes to an officer's future. And that is what they face in so many liberal cities across the country. Sheriff, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And we got a lot of Texas who's who in this room, and if you're serving in that capacity, we give you a big thanks as well. I believe we're about ready to start this. So if everybody could take their seats, this is where it gets a little funky on the Real America's Voice side of things as we make the switch over to the main show. But let me come over here. Can you guys follow me with the camera? Are you guys that good over there? Yes, they are. I'm going to keep using this. Folks, welcome. First off, I can't tell you how excited I am to be here. And everybody here, and I mean it when I tell you, when I get to hang out with Brian Glenn, usually he's coming on the show and he's out on the street and all of those things. But to be here in person with him is always fabulous. And then, of course, the folks from Patriot Mobile, fabulous. Maureen Bannon, a big thanks for coming up and filling some time with me. Her father is absolutely great. And he's here tonight. And I mean, I tell you, when I think about an event where you have the main keynote speaker is not Glenn Beck, is not Steve Bannon, I'm like, we got some great speakers here. So Geert Wilders has flown in, and a big thanks to AFA for flying him in here tonight. But I believe we are getting it started. So Glenn Story, if you're here, the CEO of Patriot Mobile, I'd love to bring you up to the stage to say a few words and kick this event off. Is Glenn here? No? Okay. All right, we're going to go to, he's coming. All right, I'm going to stick with it here and tell you that we're going to have a big night, and we're taking you all the way through till 10 o'clock Eastern time for my friends at Real America's Voice. For everybody else, Glenn is making his way up here. Here he is, the main man. Please, everybody, take your seats. Glenn, welcome.
Hi, brother.
Come on, give me a hug. What an event, my friend. All right, let me do this.
Hey, so you're not here to hear me, but I do have a couple of comments. How many of you guys have heard of Patriot Mobile? All right, so the real question is, how many are on Patriot Mobile? There's something there. I know this guy is. Well, hey, here's my comment. If you're not on Patriot Mobile and you're here, you're supporting causes that are contrary to why you're here. Hey, yo, listen up. Come on now. Anyway, so I want to thank you guys for being here, but I want to tell you a little story how this came about. Steve Bannon was a friend, and we've been advertising on his show, and he called me and says, we need to do something about the Islamification and Sharia law that's happening in Texas. And I said, yeah, we do. And so I came on, I told my wife, hey, we're gonna do this in the state, and we're gonna do it in 2 weeks. And my wife goes, no, we're not. I said, I think you don't have a choice. Anyway, so hey, I got to tell you, so this reminds me of, she went to bed, took a nap, she went to sleep, she woke up at 2 a.m. She had a vision, and her vision was to put a coalition of groups together to bring you guys all together. And that's what we are. So I want to say thank you. Yeah. That's right. All right, so I want to say the Alliance Freedom, American Freedom Alliance. Look, I'm not going to go through everybody because they're behind us, but I do want to tell one story that happened to me. How many of you guys read the Bible on a daily basis? All right, come on, listen up. How many read the Bible on a daily basis? Really? Maybe that's why Sharia law is here. So I encourage you guys to read Nehemiah. I think it's Nehemiah, chapter 3. It's about when the walls of Jerusalem were down. And you know, there's Jewish sects that don't like each other, but they knew they needed to build a wall. And so this wall was built by these sects that did not agree with each other. They knew they had to build the wall to protect their city. That is what we're doing today. This is the modern day building of the wall. Does anybody else want to be a part of that? There we go. All right, well, so I want to say thank you, Grant. Thank you for emceeing this. And I want to, one last thank you. Jenny, my wife, and Kevin Freeman's wife, Marnie, and a couple of others put this together in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, we had to expand the room 3 times to fit everybody. And we had to turn people away every day. So God bless you. God bless the great state of Texas. And God bless America.
Glenn, thank you. And I can tell you, I'm a Patriot Mobile customer. And for good reason, because as you can tell, Glenn believes in the very same things that we believe in. And it is nights like this that are so important. This is how we rally the troops to make sure that we're prepared for what is already here, and that is an invasion of this country on so many levels. Whether you think about the Islamic invasion or the invasion from our southern border that President Trump put a stop to. I believe we have a 2-minute video about Patriot Mobile. Let's roll that if we can, guys. Thank you.
The radical left knows exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted.
Seditious conspiracy.
But behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th, like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This is not the story you were shown.
I take responsibility.
This is the story they lived.
Government entrapment scheme that this actually was.
The J6 Patriots are no longer staying silent. They are speaking, they are standing, and they are telling the truth.
You can't kill us. You can't beat us.
They tried to silence them. Instead, they woke up an entire nation. The Sleeping Giant. Coming
So I
soon.
have a confession to make. Real America's Voice just hijacked Patriot Mobile's 2-minute video. That wasn't the Patriot Mobile video. That was a promo for Real America's Voice. If you don't know our network, it's great. But right now, tonight, we're about Patriot Mobile in this event. So we'll get that corrected. No big deal. I'd like to bring up one of the great Republican Texas lawmakers here. Hey, there he is. My buddy Nate Schatzline, nobody's doing it like him in Austin right now. He's a great fighter. He's become a regular on the Real America's Voice show. Nate, welcome to the program, but also to the event. Take it away.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. Hey, can I get your attention really quick? Can we give it up one more time for Patriot Mobile tonight? Amazing. Well, I'm a Texas state representative, but I'm also a pastor. Can I get everyone's attention? Can we bow our heads and can we go to the Lord in prayer? How many of you know we are in a spiritual battle for the United States of America right now? There's nothing better that we could do than to go before our Lord and Savior. So would you please join me in prayer as we open up this amazing evening? Shh. So, Father, we just come before you right now. We say, Holy Spirit, this room is yours. We say, Lord, we dedicate the United States of America back to you. We say, Father, we will not bend a knee to the death cult of radical Islam in America, nor will we do it in Texas. So, God, would you begin to expose those in our country that would have us to fall under these oppressive laws such as Sharia law? God, would you begin to expose every fake politician that campaigned off of faith, family, and freedom and abandoned the principles when they got into office? God, would you begin to bring justice to our legal system? Lord, I pray right now that those that are governing in our great state of Texas and all across America, whether at the state level or the federal level, would remember that we are one nation under God. Not just any God, but under Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. That we are a Christian country. And Father, I pray right now that you would give us the strength, the backbone, and the fortitude to speak the truth, even if it costs us our life, even if it costs us our reputation. God, we say right now, just like the great Charlie Kirk, one of the greatest martyrs that we've ever had in our generation, God, we dedicate our lives to that truth, to speak it, regardless of what it costs us. In the name of Jesus, I pray. And all the patriots in the room said amen. Amen. Here's what I want to do. We got to get this night started right, so would you stand to your feet, and we are going to say the pledge to the greatest nation in the history of the world. Follow along with me and go ahead and join. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And remain standing while we say the pledge to the greatest state in the Union, the state of Texas. Honor the Texas flag. God bless Texas. Woo! You can be seated. You can be seated. Before I invite up our special guest and our first special guest, I am going to share just for a moment about what we've gotten to do. So I mentioned before that I am a Texas state representative that represents Fort Worth, Texas, and I'm also a pastor. How many of you know that we need more bold pastors to stand up in the state of Texas and across America? I don't know about you, but I'm tired of pastors prostituting the scriptures to fill seats and to fill coffers when we should be speaking the truth about one of the greatest threats in the United States of America, and that is radical Islam. So this last session, I had the honor of being able to add an amendment in the Texas House to our ban on China land ownership, giving the governor the authority to declare the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization in the state of Texas once and for all. You know, I've said it before, these are not political issues, these are spiritual issues. This is something we have to wake up and stand up and fight. And I now have the distinct honor and privilege of serving on the National Faith Advisory Board under Senior Advisor to the White House Faith Office, Paula White, where we are fighting for pastors to have a seat at the table, for federal policy to push back on those that want to eliminate Christianity in the United States of America. How many of you know we've got to stand up and fight? The time is now. The time is now. And tonight you're going to hear from three main speakers that are going to expose a lot of information that you might know or you might not know about Islam that's happening in America today. And I need to tell you that Texas is the battleground. I'll say it again, Texas is the battleground. And I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is, raise your hand if you have a pulse in this room. The Lord chose you to fight this battle. The bad news is no one else is coming. And so if you're in this room, say this out loud, I'm called to fight this fight. So without any further ado, I want to introduce, actually before I do that, can we give it up one more time for Real America's Voice? Are you grateful that we have truth tellers that are putting real media, not the fake news media out there? We're so grateful for you, Grant, everything that you do.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you.
And tonight, we're going to keep things rolling, even while you're eating, because we have so many incredible guest speakers. What an amazing, amazing event. And so tonight, before those speakers come up, I want to introduce a special guest. He is not only a nationally known public speaker and a best-selling author, but truly an expert on the rise of Islam in America. Can you give it up for Bill Federer as he comes up to share with us this evening?
You cannot understand what's going on right now until you understand Muhammad. Muhammad was born in 570 AD. His mother dies when he's 6. He's orphaned, taken in by an uncle, Abu Talib, taken on camel rides. He was illiterate. He could never read and write. He thought the Trinity was the Father, Mary, and Jesus. And then he starts his faith in 610 AD in Mecca, and he only makes 70 converts in 12 years. He gets confrontational. They chase him out of town. He is the first Muslim refugee. He goes north to a Jewish city called Medina. 3 Jewish clans control the city. They're nice. They let him in as the first Muslim immigrant. He goes into the minority neighborhoods and he begins to organize a following, sort of like a community organizer. And as his following grows, he gets involved in politics. And then they get more demanding, and they demand that the Jews make a treaty with them. And Muhammad becomes a political leader in addition to being a religious leader. When his followers in Mecca get confrontational, they get chased out of town for disturbing the peace. Now you have lots of Muslim refugees. The Jews are nice. They let him into Medina, and now there's lots of Muslim immigrants. And Muhammad allows his followers to rob the caravans headed to Mecca in retaliation for the Meccans chasing them out of town. It's victimhood, right? They were the victims. They were chased out, so they're justified in attacking the caravans. He gets verses from his Allah that he gets 1/5 of the booty from robbing caravans. One verse says, Allah has given you the slave girls as your booty. And then when the Muslims win at the Battle of the Trench and the Battle of Badr, Muhammad goes back into the Jewish city of Medina and gets offended at one of the Jewish tribes, confiscates their property, chases them out of town. The other 2 tribes keep their heads low. And now there's 2 Jewish tribes. And he plays off their political differences, one party against the other. And then he gets offended and chases the second Jewish clan out of town. Now there's only 1 Jewish clan left. Muhammad, according to the Hadith, is taking a bath, and a spirit appears to him and says, how can you rest when Allah's enemies are in your midst? He says, where? It points at that last Jewish neighborhood. He surrounds them for 28 days, brings them into the market, chops off their heads, sells the women and children into slavery. So within 5 years of Muhammad coming into the Jewish city of Medina, there is not a Jew left in the city of Medina. They were chased out, killed, or enslaved. It's a 3-step process. Immigrate, increase, eliminate. I was talking to Ryan Helfenbein, and he sort of did a switch on it. Immigrate, populate, dominate. And so within 5 years of Muhammad's death, every pre-existing culture in Arabia is conquered. Did you know that Syria was the first country that was completely Christian, evangelized by the Apostle Paul, until 648 AD when Caliph Umar conquered it? Jerusalem was a Christian city until Caliph Umar conquered it. Egypt was completely Christian for 6 centuries, evangelized by Mark until Amir ibn al-As conquers it. There used to be 250 Catholic dioceses along North Africa until the Umayyad Muslims conquered it. In the year 711, 80,000 Muslims crossed the Strait of Gibraltar and conquered Spain. And they're finally stopped outside of Paris at the Battle of Tours in 732 AD, just 100 years after the death of Muhammad in 632 AD. They go from Arabia to Paris in a 100-year military campaign. And if you read their history, it was all defensive. They were the victims and they felt threatened, and so they were justified in attacking. And then the Turks convert to Islam, and all 7 churches mentioned in the book of Revelation were wiped out by the Muslim Turks. The Greeks call for help from the West. The West sends help. It's called the Crusades. When the Crusades end, the Muslims pick up where they left off and they conquer Constantinople, the largest Christian city in Europe. They turn the largest Christian church, the Hagia Sophia, into a mosque. And when Constantinople falls, it ends the land trade routes to get from Europe to India and China in the year 1453. And so that's why Columbus in 1492 looked for a sea route to get to India and China. Columbus would have never set sail had it not been for Islamic jihad conquering Constantinople in 1453. They kept expanding, but then in 1565, 40,000 Muslims surround Malta, and a 70-year-old Jean Lavalette rallies the Knights of Malta, and they stop the Muslims on the Mediterranean. And then, October 7th of 1571, you have the Battle of Lepanto, and there's 230 Muslim ships, and they're stopped by the Don John of Austria and a hurricane. And then you have the Battle of Vienna on September 11th of 1683. And 200,000 Muslims surround Vienna, and the Polish king Jan Sobieski comes to Vienna's rescue on September 11th. And so we see this history. We have these battles. Now it's our turn. Christianity was wiped off of 2 continents, but we can push back. The word Islam means submission to the will of Allah. A Muslim is one who has submitted, and they think there will be world peace when the whole world submits to the will of Allah. So it is a religion of peace. It's just their definition of the word peace is different than ours. Our definition of peace is different groups getting along. Their definition of world peace is world Islam. A moderate Muslim thinks the world will submit to Allah later, maybe in the distant future, maybe at the end of the world, maybe it's even figurative. And since it's so far off, they just want to live their lives, and they're happy to be under the Western umbrella. The fundamental Muslim thinks the world is supposed to submit to Allah now. They're really excited, and they want to help make it happen. The dilemma for us in the West is the nicer we show ourselves and allow them to come in, the fundamental ones view that niceness as weakness, and they get more violent and attack. This is a critical moment for America and for the world. The whole trans agenda is simply a transition phase from the Judeo-Christian past to the Islamic future. Just look at Europe. But this is our chance. This is the last stand. This is the Alamo. This is our chance to save Western civilization. God bless you.
Thank you so very much. All right, so I want to bring up, because we've got our Real America's Voice show going, which is Stinchfield tonight, by the way. I urge everyone to check that out at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 Central Time here for us. Peter McIlvaine has been on my program before. He's a fabulous voice when it comes to pushing back against the Islamic invasion. And because we've got my show, we're going to break for a little bit of dinner. But, Peter, if you would come up and say a few words, I'd love for them to hear from you. He is with Host Hearts of Oaks, and you've been such a great voice. Can you hop up there? No steps, I know. It's great to meet you in person, too, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. It was an honor to be on your show back in November. I was back in Texas, and I didn't expect to be back so soon. But no, I'm, the only Brit who's on the platform, and I speak to you out of a collapse of the UK. I live in Londonistan, and I pray that Texas has not become Londonistan. Islam is at war with us, yet the church is too afraid to even get in the ring. That's been my experience in the UK, and I think it's probably your experience here in the US. Steve Bannon opened the his AmFest speech with the phrase, "We're at war," and the war is with Islam, or more precisely, Islam is at war with us. The problem is the church hasn't really received the memo of this, and they're oblivious to that fact. Many Christians have accepted the falsehood that Islam is an Abrahamic faith. Another common fallacy is the God of the Bible, Jehovah, is the same as Allah. In reality, they are polar opposites, complete opposite entities. At its core, Islam denies the deity of Christ and repeatedly rejects the claim that Jesus is the Son of God. In fact, this is one of the most offensive doctrines to Muslims. You can touch on Muhammad, that's not good. The second most offensive doctrine you can not touch on is that Jesus is the Son of God. Since Jewish tribes in Arabia rejected Muhammad as the final prophet in the 620s, Islam has opposed Christianity and Judaism. In fact, in 627, Muhammad slit the throats of 600 Jewish men in one afternoon from the Bannon tribe. Islam does not accept Christians or Jews and has not for 1400 years. It's not going to happen in the 21st century if it hasn't happened for 1400 years. Secondly, this is a spiritual war. Well, legislation is necessary to counter the spread of, and I could go through all the rise of issues that we have in Islam and the levers of power that Islam control in terms of halal certification, Sharia compliant finance, the Islamization of education, demographic changes, the unequal treatment of women, and on and on. These measures alone, tackling these politically, are insufficient. They're important, but that is not only what is required. Pastors must engage with their congregations and must restore Christ to every sphere of society, that only that will bring transformational change in our societies. Specifically, pastors, and I'm sure there are many pastors and church leaders here, and I can implore you, because this is where we have failed in the UK. We have failed as churches to address this issue. And as churches, if we understood this issue, we would be able to push back and present truth. So the most important thing is to train our congregation, is to train Christians to understand what Islam is and what Islam is not, and understand what it is to present the gospel to our Muslim colleagues, to our Muslim friends. So please take this as a calling from God to present truth, to think of how you can take the gospel and present it to those who follow Islam, who are simply trapped in that ideology. I had the honor of being Chief of Staff to Lord Pearson, and in 2010 he brought Geert Wilders and Marine Le Pen to London, and Parliament went ballistic, literally crazy. Lord Pearson was pulled into meetings and he was quizzed at how he had done this dangerous thing to bring Parliament into disrepute and into danger. But without Geert Wilders in Europe for 20 plus years, we would be in a serious situation. Europe and the UK are on its knees. But if it wasn't for the lone political voice in Europe to stand up to Islam, we would literally be on our face. So, Geert, thank you for speaking truth for over 20 years. And can I thank AFA? You look at this. I mean, I'm a Brit. I've never seen a conference like this to engage this issue. You might have 50, 100 people, and you see these range of names on this placard behind me. You see American Freedom Alliance have brought Geert here, or bringing him to LA tomorrow. And without these courageous organizations like AFA, without Patriot Mobile sponsoring, without War Room, without these entities, we would not be able to have a chance of winning this battle. So thank you to Karen and AFA for bringing Geert here. Now, Lord Pearson often says to me, he said, "Come on, Peter, we cannot expect all Muslims to convert to Christ." Yes, we can. Conversion to Christ remains the only ultimate solution to increasingly dominant Islam. There's literally no net benefit to having Islam in our nation. I would say more, but we're being recorded, so I will not say more on that. For 2 years, I led a church roadshow called Can We Talk About Islam? And brought Geert here, or bringing him to LA tomorrow. And without these courageous organizations like AFA, without Patriot Mobile sponsoring, without War Room, without these entities, we would not be able to have a chance of winning this battle. So thank you to Karen and AFA for bringing Geert here. Now, Lord Pearson often says to me, he said, come on, Peter, we cannot expect all Muslims to convert to Christ. Yes, we can. Conversion to Christ remains the only ultimate solution to increasingly dominant Islam. There's literally no net benefit to having Islam in our nation. I would say more, but we're being recorded, so I will not say more on that. For 2 years, I led a church roadshow called Can We Talk About Islam? And that finished because of a lack of demand and a fear. I believe we are in a different time, and I believe here there is the confidence, there is the boldness, there is the desire to actually engage with churches, raise up a generation that will engage in Islam. So I hope you here take that challenge. And just finally, we must activate our children's and youth ministries in churches on this issue. We need to raise up the next generation to fight on this issue. As Lord Pearson has often reminded me, Jesus never instructed Christians to turn the other cheek to the devil, and neither must we. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. You know how you know Peter's a fighter? I MC a lot of events, and you'll see me start to squeeze closer to the speaker to say, hey, we got. He looked at me, he shook me off. It was like the scene from Bull Durham. I'm not throwing a fastball here. So I want to welcome our next guest. This is fabulous. You know, I used to do radio in Los Angeles up until recently. California's crazy, man. I'll tell you what, we can take big lessons from what happens in California that they would like nothing more than to march that straight here. On so many different fronts. So with that, I want to welcome our next guest. I hope I don't mess up her name. Dr. Karen Siegmund, is that right? Maybe. I'm going to ask her when she gets up here. She is the president of American Freedom Alliance, a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating the public on moral, cultural, and political challenges facing Western civilization. Under her leadership, AFA promotes constitutional freedoms, free speech, religious liberty, national sovereignty, and Judeo-Christian values. The good doctor was a scientist during the Cold War in the field of anti-submarine warfare. At the conclusion of the Cold War, she became an educator at various grade levels from middle school to university. She is a frequent speaker and commentator on issues impacting American freedom and Western civilization. Doctor, please come up and welcome. It is so great to meet you. What you got to say it so everybody gets it right, because old Stinchfield gets it wrong 5% of the time.
It's such an incredible honor to be here tonight, and thank you so much. It's Sigmund, by the way, but that's all right.
I jazzed it up German style.
You said it should have been that way. So it's an incredible honor to be with you this evening. I want to start first by thanking Patriot Mobile, without whom this would not have happened, really. They've been stunningly generous, and what impresses me particularly is their obvious love of Texas, love of country, love of the freedoms we hold so dear, and for their understanding of the threats that we're all here today to defend against. Thanks to Patriot Mobile. And a special thank you, honestly, can I see her this way? Yes, to Jenny Story. It's impossible to express the extent of her Herculean effort to bring this to happen. Really, Jenny Story, phenomenal. I also want to thank Marnie Freeman, whose tireless efforts contributed to bringing you all here this evening. Marnie, wherever you are, thank you. Another hero. As you can see, there are a lot of organizations who help make this possible. Most of them are on the banner. Thank you to all of you for all that you do. To the team at the Gaylord, honestly, if you could have watched how quickly this happened, what Jenny put into place, Gaylord has been superb. And in case you missed it, it's possible, it's unlikely, but it's possible, we have a fair amount of security here. Did you notice? Right. Because we're the haters. We're the bad guys. We're the violent ones, but we're the ones who need this unbelievable amount of security. We've got, it's truly unbelievable. We're deeply grateful to all of them for keeping us safe, and it reminds us of how vulnerable we are. As you heard, I'm the president of the American Freedom Alliance. We're a nonprofit organization which defends against threats to America and Western civilization. Obviously, you all know this, the Islamic ideology is one of the dominant threats that AFA has been contending with for years now, which is how Geert Wilders, the Dutch parliamentarian, leader of the Dutch Party for Freedom, came to be on our radar. We've been watching city after city, as has already been mentioned, throughout the West fall to this anti-Judeo-Christian, anti-Western civilization invasion. Paris, London, Berlin, Vienna, Cologne, just to cite a few examples of this. These once proud capitals and major cultural centers have been essentially captured and conquered. Actually, let me be clear, the reality is these cities, because of their governing elites, surrendered willingly to forces that seek to take them down. These conquests were, in fact, cultural suicide committed by those who have no love of country, no pride in their culture, no love of their own citizens, their own roots, their own foundational ideologies, and no love of the Judeo-Christian ideology and tenets that are, in fact, the load-bearing walls of their nations and, in fact, ours. That is, what happened in Europe was preventable. If only there had been a confidence in who they are, a pride in their culture, a love of their own foundations, a love of the biblical tenets that underpin their society, a love of their nation. But in fact, there were none of those things. We all grew up hearing the story of the Trojan horse. The Greeks, unable to breach the defensive walls around Troy, even after a 10-year siege, built a wooden horse in which they hid their best soldiers, sent it into the city as a gift, right? We all know this story. And we've all sort of loved that ingenuity. At nightfall, these soldiers emerged, having gained access through this cunning tactic, and conquered Troy. What we've seen in Europe and are seeing here is how no such stratagem is necessary. Rather, the gates have been thrown open and the conquering forces welcomed with open arms, bringing in this cultural suicide in ways we can't begin to fathom. Geert Wilders has been defending his country, the Netherlands, from exactly this threat for decades. The most vocal of politicians warning of the dangers of this invasion and pleading for the defense of this remarkable nation, this unique Dutch culture, against this threat. For decades, this has been his mission, and not enough people listened. But fighting against Islam, the religion of peace, has brought a campaign of hatred leveled at him that it's impossible to comprehend. The extent to which they have made his life stunningly complicated, it's truly beyond imagining. Living under death threats by those who have time and time again proven their commitment to carrying out those threats, who will be rewarded in this life and the next for accomplishing what they seek to accomplish, it's unspeakable. The word hero is tossed around all too glibly, but it absolutely applies to this man who has not been cowed, not been silenced, has not surrendered. On the contrary, and this is why we hold him in the highest regard. AFA conferred our Heroes of Conscience Award on him a few years ago. Then he came back to Los Angeles to speak in 2017. We invited him back just recently to LA now because he's a true warrior, and the election of Mamdani in New York, as well as activity in Michigan and elsewhere, put this topic on more people's radars, and we wanted to learn from what he has seen in the Netherlands. They've been the canary in the coal mine, and there's much to be learned from the playbook being revealed in Europe. I was delighted that he agreed to come out, and when I told Steve Bannon, with whom we've partnered on many events, that we were bringing Mr. Wilders to Los Angeles, Steve said, well, that's all fine, but we need him in Dallas.
And here he is. And we're so glad you brought him here.
So great. Dallas is ground zero of the Islamization of the U.S., and we must defend Texas. As goes Texas, he said, so goes the nation. And as goes the nation, so goes the world. Of course, he's right. Steve said, we'll have a huge event in Dallas. And here we are. And so that, ladies and gentlemen, is how this event came to be. Steve's recognition of the stakes and of the incredible heroism of Geert Wilders is why we're here tonight. So please, a round of applause for Steve Bannon. It's also it's crucial to note that while this will be a heck of an event, we want you to know that there have been a lot of meetings taking place, all catalyzed by this event right here. Meetings, plans laid out, strategies being worked through in order to fight and win against this attempted subversion of our constitutional republic. And for this, I'd like to offer a special thank you to Frank Gaffney, whose utter tirelessness is bearing great fruit in this crucial fight. This is clearly a spiritual battle. Mr. Wilders' commitment to cultural and political sovereignty, to the values of Western civilization, to freedom and free speech are truly heroic, and that his party has risen to the extent that it has shows that such commitment to good in the face of evil can truly make a difference. I hope you take 4 points from tonight. 1, we must fight against this incursion in every way possible. Their tactics are cunning, and we must be at least as cunning to impede them. We cannot let Islam dominate over our Judeo-Christian nation, and we cannot let Sharia law subvert our constitutional and representative government. We must also be confident in who we are as Americans, as a biblical people, as part of this exceptional, unique constitutional republic, and must shore up pride in who we are. And third, it is in fact possible to lose a war you haven't even realized you're in. This is war. They have been waging it on us, on the West, and we must counter it wherever we can. And number 4, never doubt the power that one individual can have. Now, it's my tremendous honor to ask you to please join me in welcoming a true hero, Geert Wilders.
Thank you. Good job. No, great job. Thank you for your support here, too. Geert, welcome. The podium is yours, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, my dear friends, patriots, and defenders of the West. A very happy new year from Europe to you all. And indeed, it's an honor for me to be back in the United States again, and in Dallas especially, the heart of the Lone Star State, as we just remembered. I actually really do love Texas. Have been here many, many times, and among so many brave patriots, the air smells like freedom. Please keep it like that. I want to thank my dear friend and ally, Karen Ziegemund, for the very kind words, and together with many others, for bringing us together this evening in the Sanctuary of Truth. I also salute Steve Bannon. Where's Steve Bannon? Where is he sitting? Steve, I always respected Steve a lot. I always think of him as a man who sees the battlefield as clearly as any of your best generals in history. Steve Bannon, thank you so much. And I thank you all, the brave men and women of Texas, for being here. We need you. America needs you. The world needs you more than ever. My friends, let us not beat around the bush. We are not here only to trade pleasantries. We are here because our home, your home, is under attack. Your culture is under siege. We are in a civilizational and extensional struggle for the very survival of our Western values. Our way of life is being marked for destruction by those who hate the concept of freedom. Barely 2 weeks ago, right here in the great state of Texas, the FBI arrested, as you all know, a 20-year-old ISIS terrorist who was planning a bombing to bring the slaughter of the Middle East to your streets again. And at this very moment, as we are having dinner here, Islamic jihadis are plotting against you, here and all over the United States. They are not coming, they are already here. They have unpacked their bags, set up their sails, and are walking your streets. Islamic radicals have declared war on you. And listen to what they are saying. I just took a few examples. I could give you 100 examples. I chose a few. Like Uthman ibn Farouk, a Pakistani-born Californian who was recently speaking in Texas. And he said, the future is ours. America will be a Muslim country. Islam will enter every house. We are unapologetic. We are uncompromising. And listen to a sheikh at a Muslim conference here in America. He told his audience, Islam has a political mandate so that you can rule the society in which you find yourself. And sometimes you have to burn it down before you can rebuild. And we are at a moment of reckoning. We have to introduce an attitude of power. And in Michigan, Imam Isa Abdul Karim spoke in the same vein at the lecture in Detroit a few weeks ago. And he said, Muslims do not fear death. And he said it to explain why they do not fear to blow themselves up. And he said, this gives us power over them. And in Florida, a few weeks ago, another imam said, jihad is who we are. And my message to you, my dear friends, is please listen to these people. Heed their words. Do not make the fatal mistake many German Jews made in the 1930s by thinking they are just exaggerating for effect. Those people do not speak in metaphors. They mean every word they tell you. Take them literally. Because if you don't, this is what's going to happen. They will, and I'm not exaggerating, they will burn down your society. They will blow up themselves in the middle of your streets. These radicals hate America. They do not want to join the American dream. They want to end it. That's their agenda. My friends, over 2,700 mosques have already been built in the United States, including 300 right here in Texas. And every one of those minarets is a claim of territory. And every call to prayer is a signal of conquest. Dozens of new mosques are being built every year, and not as a simple house of prayer as we know it, but as a symbol of Islam's triumph and the rest retreat. And I ask you, how did this all get here? They entered, I'm afraid to say, through your front door. But who held this door open? The radical left. The radical left, including your president, your former president, Obama, did that. The woke elites who hate their own heritage more than they love their own freedom. They have formed a suicide pact with Islam. They have invited the wolf into the nursery and told the children to be tolerant. They have taught your children to be ashamed of their history while welcoming those who want to end it. As Charlie Kirk rightfully said, and I quote Charlie, Islam is the sword the left is using to slit the throat of America. And the same goes for the leftist politicians in Europe. I wish this year, 2026, to be a year with fewer Islamic atrocities. I wish for a year with fewer slit throats and fewer grieving families. But wishes are not a strategy, and hope is not a defense. For that to happen, this year must be a year of action. It must be a year of courage. It must be a year where our leaders find the strength to acknowledge that Islam is not only totally incompatible with our Western civilization and our Christian values, but it's the single biggest threat to our survival. And we have no alternative than to act to stop it. And why is this the defining struggle of our age, some people ask me. And that is because Islam is incompatible with the very DNA of a free society. You cannot mix Sharia law with the Constitution. You cannot mix the subjection of women with the equality of men. You cannot mix the light of liberty with the change of submission. You have to choose. You have to choose liberty or change. And my friends, Islam is a totalitarian political ideology demanding nothing less than the total submission of the world. It's the system where dissent is blasphemy and liberty is a sin. It kills and destroys. We are a civilization that cherishes and worships life. Islam loves death. And that is why you must stop the Islamization of your great country, America. You must avoid the catastrophic mistake we, unfortunately, in Europe made. And Vice President Geert Wilders was so right when he said in Munich almost a year ago that Europe opened the floodgates to millions of unvetted immigrants. And let me add that most of those immigrants to Europe came and come from Islamic nations from the Middle East and Africa. Please don't follow the European example, which is suicidal. You must stand up to your own politicians, to your own political leaders, and tell them no more. America will not bow. Texas will not surrender. Not today, not tomorrow, never. As I said, in Europe, we are living through a tragedy of our own making. The European political elite was so tolerant that they tolerated the end of their own culture. They were so open-minded that their brains fell out of their head. They allowed Islam to almost extinguish the 7 lights of our Judeo-Christian civilization: freedom, safety, identity, prosperity, integrity, justice, and sovereignty. The lights of freedom were the first to go out. Look at me, and I'm just an example. For over 21 years, I have lived in a bubble of security. Together with my wife, Christina, sitting here on the table, we lived in safe houses. We lived in prison cells, not as being as prisoners, but just to stay alive. We traveled in armored cars. We have only 24/7 police protection. I could continue like that. But the real question is, what was our crime? What would we do to deserve this? What does anybody do who deserves this? And the answer is that I made a short movie about the Quran. I wrote a book about Islam. And I spoke and I speak the truth about Islam and Muhammad, a 17th century warlord who founded an evil doctrine called submission. For that is what the Arab word Islam literally means, submission. I got several fatwas from Pakistani imams and mullahs who pronounced them against me, urging the faithful to kill me. They sent me thousands of death threats, and the Taliban, ISIS, and even Al-Qaeda put me on their death list. But I will tell you, I will never, ever let them silence me. Never. Thank you. The truth is, however, that over 1 billion people in the world follow Islam. And most of them actually do not truly know what it really stands for. But the minority, hundreds of millions of Muslims that do understand, have been so poisoned by this doctrine that they find it acceptable to use violence in the sake of their ideology. Violence for the sake of their ideology has a name. It is called jihad, holy war. Muhammad himself said that jihad is an Islamic religious duty. And 200 years ago, John Quincy Adams, your 6th president, warned, and I quote, that the precept of the Quran is perpetual war against all who deny that Muhammad is the prophet of God, end of quote. And that is true today as it was then. I came to Dallas 10 years ago to award a prize to the winner of a Muhammad art contest in Garland. I came to defend your First Amendment, a freedom we in Europe had already lost by then. And shortly, you might remember, before the exhibition ended, 2 Islamic jihadis stormed the building. It was 2015 and the first ISIS attack on American soil, here in Texas. They shot an unarmed security guard in the ankle before being shot themselves by a brave off-duty traffic cop who, thanks to your Second Amendment, was able to defend the first. So again, America, I tell you, if you fail to make a stand against Islamic moral radicalism and jihadism, if you fail to stop it from expanding on American soil, you will end up just like Europe. In our once free and once safe continent, we are being inundated by Islam today. Freedom of speech in Europe is already gone. Islamic radicals can say whatever they want. They can preach hate in our town squares. But ordinary Europeans who dare to criticize Islam or complain about becoming a minority in our own neighborhood, village or city are dragged to court. In Europe, the truth is now a crime. And you can be sent to prison for the words you speak. Look at a 20-year-old young woman called Maya from Hamburg in Germany. She called a rapist of a 15-year-old girl a disgraceful pig. And while the rapist himself got a suspended sentence, she was sentenced to a jail sentence. It's incredible, but it happened. My friends, the second light that Islam extinguished is the light of safety. In almost every, and again, I'm not exaggerating, in almost every major city in whole Western Europe, whenever you take a metro or a train, whenever you visit a festival, a market or a fair, you run the risk of being hacked to pieces by men eager to establish the Islamic Caliphate. We had numerous of those attacks in Europe. Our cities have become combat zones. Last month only, 4 Islamic plots were foiled in Germany, Poland, and my own Netherlands. All across Europe, Christmas fairs were once again met with concrete barriers around public markets. New Year's Eve turned European cities in combat zones, where non-Western immigrants besieged the police with fireworks. In Paris, the government was too afraid to even hold its traditional open-air New Year's concert. It is getting worse every day. And always the same type of perpetrators, adhering to the same so-called religion. Always the same mantra from the authorities who claim that this has nothing to do with Islam. The harder the murderers shout Allahu Akbar, the harder the political elites shout nothing to do with Islam. And then Islam has a word for those elites. It calls them dhimmis. I don't know if you know the word dhimmi, but dhimmi is the Arabic word for a non-Muslim, usually a Christian or a Jew, who is temporarily tolerated by Islam because he has submitted to it without converting. Submission, remember, is all what Islam is about. And how does a dhimmi react to jihad? By cowering to Islam and lying about its true nature. Like the Australian Prime Minister Tony Albanese did after the Bondi Beach massacre in Australia. He called it a radical perversion of Islam. It was, of course, a terrible and despicable lie. What happened at Bondi Beach is not a radical perversion of Islam, it is core Islam and Jew hatred. Dr. Bill Warner, one of your American academia, taught us in his studies that there actually is more Jew hatred in the Quran than in Hitler's Mein Kampf. My friends, if you want to remain safe, once again, stop Islam. The third light Islam extinguishes is the light of the Christian identity. Islamic mass immigration is erasing Europe's soul. Millions of young men from cultures that despise us are today colonizing our streets. The European Union hates borders and that place their Islam in its hands. And open borders facilitate what Islam calls hijrah, al-hijrah, the Islamic duty to immigrate and conquer. And by 2050, the Islamic population will be 30% in Sweden, 20% in Germany, France and the United Kingdom, and well over 15% in Norway, Denmark and the Netherlands. Currently, in my own country, the Netherlands, Islam today is already the largest religion amongst people under the age of 25. It will be the largest religion overall in 25 years' time from now. In 2050 in the Netherlands, there will be more Muslims than Christians, and such a country will no longer be Holland. It will be Hollandistan. Our Dutch identity, if we do nothing, will be gone. Just like that of France, Germany, Britain, Italy, and all the other great nations of Europe. If you don't protect your countries, you are in the country, you are a parking lot for the third world, with an Islamic Trojan horse in the middle of it. Your identity is your armor. Once you let them strip it from you, you are defenseless. The fourth light that goes out is the light of prosperity. Winston Churchill called Islam the strongest retrograde force in the world, and he was right. Europe has been caught in a retrograde spiral since Islam entered. In the Netherlands, more than half of all welfare benefits are consumed by non-Western immigrants that overwhelmingly come from Islamic countries. And every single asylum seeker in Holland cost the Dutch taxpayer nearly $1 million per person. Islam calls that jizya, the tax infidel pay to be tolerated. But it drains the livelihood of our economies. We are bankrupting our children to pay for the loss of our own identity. And your country is learning this too. Look at all these Somali fraudsters in Minnesota, plundering, what was it, $9, $10, $11 billion from your social security. They are looting the treasure that your grandpa and parents built for you, and they are using it to finance your destruction. And I ask you, it's just a suggestion, why don't you all denaturalize all the Somali fraudsters and send them packing out of your country? Thank you. That is exactly what should happen. If we don't deal with it in the most toughest way, they will repeat it and repeat it. According to official figures, half of the suspects in the Netherlands of sexual crimes, such as rape, are of foreign descent. Specific groups such as Syrians, Afghans, Iraqis, and again Somalis, are to 35 times more likely to be involved in sexual offenses than the native Dutch people. And we all know that Muhammad raped a young girl called Aisha and gave sex slaves as gifts to his henchmen. No wonder, since he's such a holy person for Islam, that his followers believe, many of his followers believe, that they can treat our women as sex slaves. So the honor of our women is under siege again. And I can tell you that every parent in Western Europe worries if their daughter cycling home will be safe coming home. In our cities, in our small villages, everywhere. Look at 17-year-old Lisa from my country, murdered on her way home from school by an illegal Nigerian. Or look at the 10-year-old girl raped in Ireland by an African asylum seeker. Or look at Austria, where 11 immigrants aged 16 to 21 were on trial last year for abducting a 12-year-old girl and sexually abusing her for a 4-month period. And let us not forget the English grooming scandal. For 30 years, thousands of non-Islamic girls were forced into sex by gangs of Pakistanis. And British dhimmified, they were really dhimmis, dhimmified police refused to act for fear of being called racist. And when one brave young working class Englishman stood up for those girls, he was hunted by the state. But he, Tommy Robinson, is a hero because he dared to speak and act. The sixth light that is extinguished is the light of justice. If a criminal is Islamic and a victim an infidel, how do you think our courts in Europe react? Last October, a Swedish court refused to deport Yazid Mohammed, a 20-year-old Eritrean who had raped a 16-year-old girl. And the judge considered that the Eritrean, and it's literally true, had not raped his Swedish girl and victim long enough. And last November in France, a court reduced the sentence of an Islamic teen who, together with 2 others, had gang raped a 12-year-old Jewish girl for the sole reason that she was Jewish. And the court trimmed the teen's jail sentence to facilitate, and I quote, his future reintegration in our society. And on March 17 last year, the European Court of Human Rights actually created a right of return for deported criminals. So even in Europe, when our most worst leftist government kicked the worst criminals out, the woke judges invite them back. And that kind of judges, my friends, are today in Europe internalizing Sharia law. They are more worried about the human rights of the criminal than of the life of the victim. We are witnessing the moral collapse of our legal system. Justice delayed is justice denied, but justice Islamicide is not justice at all. Let me tell you one thing. Sharia law is evil. Nothing else than pure 100% evil. So, if you want to save the rule of law, stop the tide of Islamization. My friends, the mayor of Amsterdam is one of those leftist politicians siding with Islam. She fears the Islamic vote. She sacrificed her sovereignty of the altar of fear, political correctness and democratic shift. They all want to save the Ummah, the worldwide Islamic community. You remember, that's why I'm saying this, that Jews were chased in Amsterdam 1.5 years ago by Islamic thugs. They were beaten up, thrown in the canals, knocked over on purpose by scooters and cars. And the thugs were aided by immigrant taxi drivers while the police was absent. They are all, also some politicians in your country, they are all those weak politicians are feeding the crocodile, hoping it will eat them last. But dimitude is just one stage before being eaten yourself. They think they can manage Islam. They think they can tame it. But they are wrong. Islam does not want a seat at the table. It wants to own the table. And sovereignty is the right for us to say no to Islam without exception. My friends, the 7 lights, unfortunately, almost have all gone out in Europe. And I'm sure you don't want it to happen in America too. But do not think that you are safe. You already had 9/11. The United States today are the next on the menu of the crocodile. Islam has already arrived on your shores, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. The lights of freedom, safety, identity, prosperity, integrity and justice are under attack here too. They want to build, can you imagine, an Islamic city in Josephine, 40 miles from here. Stop them. Please, stop them. Next to the Texas capital in Austin, a huge Islamic center linked to the Muslim Brotherhood is being built with Saudi money. Please stop them. Stop them. But look in other parts of America. Look at Minnesota, where Somalis are taken over and have elected Ilhan Omar to the US Congress. She sneers at the country that gave her refuge and a passport and brags about advancing a Somalia interest in Congress. Look at Dearborn, Michigan, the first Islamic majority city in the US, where Mayor Abdullah Hammoud told a non-Islamic citizen of a city who objected to naming a street in honor of a jihadist, he said to him, "You are an Islamophobe, move out of here." Look at New York City, where the newly elected mayor, Zohran Mamdani, took his oath on the Quran, the book of hate. He refuses even to condemn the jihadist phrase, globalize the intifada, and wants to take down the statue of Christopher Columbus. My friends, they want to erase your history so they can replace it with theirs. They want to take down your statues, rename your streets, and put up their crescents. They want you to be a stranger in your own land of birth. They want you to apologize for being American. And I ask you, are you going to do that? Good for you. My friends, there is still hope for America. I see hope in the governor, Greg Abbott. He did what every European leader should have done decades ago. He designated not only CARE, but also the Muslim Brotherhood a forest terrorist entity. And he deserves a big applause for doing that. I see hope here because I read that there is now a Sharia-free America caucus in your House of Representatives. And that's a very good thing to happen. But most of all, I see hope in your great president, Donald J. Trump. He permanently paused migration from third world nations. Immigration from many non-Western Islamic countries are fully or partially banned by him. And President Trump, as one of the few leaders in the world, understands that if you don't love America, you don't belong in America. I was honored to meet President Trump last year in The Hague, where he attended the NATO summit. And he told me, keep going, defend your country, defend your civilization, be tough on immigration. Thank you, Mr. President. And I tell you, my friends, the day the British and the Dutch, the French and the German leaders adopt your president's braveness and tough immigration policy, Europe's predicament will be over. We need more leaders who love their own people more than they love the praise of the globalist media. We need men of courage, lots of them. And I see hope in you too. You, the American patriots, who know that the worst thing imaginable is to die as a coward in the land of Islam. Do not allow Islamic radicalism turning the lights of Western civilization in America. Never hand your country over. After 250 years of independence and freedom to Islamic totalitarianism. Never allow the followers of Muhammad to turn your great country in Americanistan just like they already have turned large part of Europe into Eurabia. But my friends, of course, there is also hope in Europe too. I am certainly not the only patriot in Europe. I am not the last man standing. I represent a multitude of great men and politicians, men and women in our old continent where Western civilization started. Like-minded parties in other countries as mine stand for the same principles. We are hated by many of the dhimmis, many of the ruling elite because we refuse to submit. Last year, a court in France used the pretext of party staffers working in the long location to bar Marine Le Pen, France's most popular politician and maybe future president, from running in the next presidential election. In Germany, where the patriotic AfD, Alternative für Deutschland, party has become, since a few weeks, the largest political party in the polls, there is a serious possibility that that party will be banned. And in the Netherlands, our political opponents are considering introducing legislation to prohibit my party as well, because its organizational structure differs from that from other parties. My friends, we try hard to ensure Western survival. And I will end up with a short 7-point plan, what I propose that we all should do. First, we must stop pretending, number one, that Islam is merely a religion because it's a totalitarian ideology. Very important. And let me add, maybe not everybody agrees with me, but still I want to say it, that there are moderate Muslims. Fortunately, there are many moderate Muslims. Not all Muslims are radical, but there is no moderate Islam. So please stop talking about radical Islam, because it's a stupid pleonasm. You have moderate and radical Muslims, but there is only one Islam, and that is the Islam from the Quran, from the Hadith, from all the terrible things that Islam produced. Two, we must act and de-Islamize our country. So I would say close all those hate factories that they call Islamic schools, where children are taught that we are filthy infidels. Two, close radical mosques. Forbid new ones, for Islam regards them as symbols of triumph. Prevent any new cities of profit on Western soil. Prohibit Saudi, Qatari or any other funding from radical Islamic countries and projects from them in the West. Ban the Muslim Brotherhood and other radical organizations. Very important as well is to finally stop Islamic immigration. Hijrah is the most important instrument. So I tell you, close the floodgates. No more immigration from Islamic countries as from today. Deport all illegal immigrants. Demand that immigrants assimilate or leave our countries. ban Sharia law. If you love the Quran, more than the Constitution, we'll send you back to the desert tomorrow. And strip dual nationals of their Western nationality if they commit crimes, if they act against our laws, if they wage jihad. Send them back to the country of their other nationality. No mercy for criminals or jihadis. And then I would add, proposed it in Holland, I don't know whether it's popular here or not, but I believe you can only be loyal to one nation. So do not allow people with a dual nationality to assume political office. And of course, defend our roots. Our roots are built on the heritage of Jerusalem, Athens and Rome. We owe nothing to Islam. We should reject all forms of cultural relativism. We should not be afraid to say that our Christian Judeo-Western culture is far superior to the barbaric culture of Islam. And of course, fight for freedom. The great Ronald Reagan said that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Understand, please, and I'm sure you do, that freedom is not a gift, but a conquest. It must be actively fought for by all of us. It should be protected. It should be passed on to other generations, or else it will be lost. And we should rally around our flags. The flags is our home. It represents the sacrifices of the fallen and the hopes of the unborn. Long live the stars and stripes. Long live the Dutch tricolor. May they always wave over us as free countries. And more to Europe than to you, but especially to Europe, guarantee freedom of speech, the most important right underpinning democracy. We in Europe should have a First Amendment. Spread the message. Another request I have to you. Speak the truth. Don't be afraid. Without the truth, we are already slaves. The truth is the only real weapon that can shatter the dark walls of jihad. Boycott media platform that censors people for telling the truth about Islam. Reject the cancel culture. Repeal all hate speech laws. In Canada, Australia, in Europe, withdraw them. My friends, with this program, we will turn the lights of civilizations back on. A full stop of the Islamization of our societies is the blueprint for our survival and freedom. And we will be victorious, and we will have the moral courage to speak the truth. Because we say, no more evil, no more anti-Semitism, no more terror, no more killings, no more hatred, no more Islam. Enough is enough. We are the forces of light. We defend the light of the world. And we will beat together the forces of darkness. As St. Paul wrote, and I quote St. Paul, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against the rulers of the world and the spirit of wickedness in high places, end of quote. And indeed, we do not hate Muslims. We are fighting only flesh. We are fighting not flesh and blood. We fight a dark ideology that enslaves the mind and extinguishes the human spirit, and the name of that ideology is Islam. And we know, all here sitting together, that if we are brave, if we do our civic duty, and it is not easy, I know that, it is not easy, but we have no alternative. If we do that, we will win. Because we know that the principalities and powers indeed can be toppled. that the rulers of the world, if they are not right, can be defeated, and that the demonification in high places can and must end. The West, my friends, has repulsed the Islamic tide before. And by the grace of God and the strength of our own will, we will do it again. This is our duty. And we will not fail. We will not falter. We will never, ever give up. We will stand and fight, and we will win. Thank you. Long live Texas. Long live the United States. And long live the Netherlands. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I love that Geert's an ocean away from us, and he captures the spirit of Texas. He said early in his speech, they will never get Texas. Well, Geert, we have a saying for those who try, come and take it. All of this is a partnership thanks to Patriot Mobile. We appreciate that. We've got Steve Bannon coming up. I see Glenn Beck just came in the room. He'll be speaking tonight as well. I talk about partnerships. Glenn, you guys allow me to come on and be a guest on many of your shows. Sarah's fabulous, and I appreciate that. I get to work with some of the greatest people in the world. Think about this. At Salem Media, the radio station, and Real America's Voice, I got to work closely with Charlie Kirk and become very close with him, and that is an honor of a lifetime. But I add on to that, I get to be a guest at The Blaze. I get to work with guys like John Solomon at Real America's Voice. And the other guy that I get to work with is Steve Bannon. They wrote me an introduction, but Steve Bannon does not need an introduction. He is literally, I believe, the leader of the grassroots, Make America Great Again, America First movement in America. He's the brains behind the fight, and you can go all the way back to his time at Breitbart and his time in the White House and now hosting War Room. But if you didn't have respect for Steve Bannon before all that, when this man went to prison, the way he handled it should have been an inspiration for everyone. Now, I don't tell people this a lot in Texas. I got my cowboy boots on, and I've been here 25 years, and I consider myself a Texan, but I grew up in New York, and I'm half Italian. And I can tell you, as a half Italian New Yorker from the construction business, and I watched Steve Bannon come out of prison, he handled it, as they would say back there, standing it on his head. He came out, and he was more emboldened than he went in. And if they thought they could silence him by locking him up, boy, did they get just the opposite. And so I'm not going to go on and on about him because you could all night. I'm so honored that he's here in Texas. I'm honored to be able to introduce him. You know, he said to me one day when I came on his show, he said, Grant, there's nobody more MAGA than you. Do you know, I saved that clip. I said, Steve Bannon says there's nobody more MAGA than me. I'm keeping that forever. Steve Bannon, welcome to the program. Come on up. Welcome to Texas.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, folks. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. First off, I want to thank Jenny and Karen for putting this together in 3 weeks, right? Is this amazing? The energy here, the fight here. So thank you, guys. Is Congressman Van Duren, is she still here? Right there. She's been fighting this for, what, 15 years? Since you were mayor here? Unbelievable. Is MTG here? Where's MTG? Man, I had a whole list of jokes for MTG. I guess I'm going to use it. Folks, I want to tell you about a A tale of three cities. Tehran, Minneapolis, and Grapevine, Texas. In Tehran, they're burning it to the ground, right? You heard their historians tonight when they came out of Saudi Arabia and they rolled up Egypt and Babylon and Syria and Spain, North Africa. North Africa only gave us St. Augustine and the City of God, right? They rolled that right up. And Persia. They overwhelmed some of the greatest civilizations in the world, and they did it quickly. If it hadn't been for the French at Tours, a couple of 100 miles outside of Paris, we'd be Islamic. If it wasn't for Vienna, a couple of 100 years later, we'd be Islamic. Well, the folks in Persia, from 1979 until today, they've had the great pleasure of living in an Islamic republic. How did that turn out for them? It destroyed their culture, their society, their women, their economy, and themselves. Those kids are in the street now, and they're taking incoming, and my strongest recommendation to the president has been, let it be. They got to bring it down, right? Their parents brought it in 79, and their grandparents, hey, and it wasn't perfect, far from perfect, but they visited that Islamic Republic on them, and it's their duty and their responsibility and their karma to take it down. And look at Minneapolis. I walk out here tonight. We've already had a Real America Voice, our cameraman that travels normally with us all the time. He's up with Pasovic and the Secretary of Treasury. He got attacked in a restaurant for wearing a RAV jacket. Right now, they're surrounding Antifa, and those folks are surrounding the Hilton Hotel because an employee at the Hilton Hotel doxed the ICE agents, and now you're going to have 1,000 people around that hotel. They're pushing for a fight. Give it to them, right? This is all about the 15 to 20 million illegal alien invaders that came in on Biden's watch. And they all got to go. Not just the criminals, all of them have to go. This is a test of wills. Do we have the political and cultural will to say if we are a sovereign nation, you are not here properly and you're going to leave? Of all those fights, the most important is right here in Grapevine, Texas. Now, why is that? Why isn't Grapevine, Texas in January, was the 9th of January, 2026, and on a national football college semifinal, you got the Hoosiers of Indiana and the Oregon Ducks, one of the great games of college season. Everybody's here. The energy is incredible and put together. Had to turn away hundreds of people. You know exactly what the stakes are. You talk about tours, you talk about Vienna. Grapevine, Texas, and Dallas-Fort Worth in the state of Texas is the third. We have to win here. Why did they choose Texas? Why did they choose Texas? Of course, it's the economy, it's the technology. Hell, I don't know, Dallas is going to be the new Wall Street, and Austin is going to be the new Palo Alto. You know, all these things, of course, that comes with a little deal baggage. The people that run those operations, right? You've got a booming economy, you got great people. But even more important than that is what Texas stands for in the world. I tell people, I traveled all over with the military when I was a naval officer, and then later in business, Goldman Sachs, investment banking, everywhere, Japan, Korea, France, in partnerships and deals. There's two brands they ask you about. One is Harvard, because they all want to get their kids in, how they do that, right? The other, thank you very much. You're right, DEI kind of ruined that, didn't it? President Trump, I think, is taking care of that one. The other is Texas. It's Texas. On The landscape of memory and myth about the second founding of our nation and manifest destiny and really making this a continental power, Texas is the central event. Texas is the central part of the process. On a global scale, they've all watched cowboy movies. They've all watched the Westerns. They all talk about it because here you took the common man and in a relatively desolate place, you built a culture and society that drove the greatest power on earth into the 20th century. You don't think they don't know that in Qatar and Saudi Arabia and UAE and Turkey and all of it? That's why the invasion is here. New York's fallen 25 years after 9/11. Could you imagine 25 years at that? We have a Ugandan Marxist jihadist, and they gave it up with what? Out of fight. What did Geert Wilders just tell you? The greatest civilization in the world and the greatest parts of that civilization, Amsterdam, Paris, London, they've gone without a fight. Now, the brothers and sisters there of the Western civilization haven't totally retreated. But they're in a situation now, and I gave an interview on French TV 2 days ago. There's going to be a civil war in the streets in London. There's going to be a civil war in the streets of Paris. There's going to be a civil war in the streets of Brussels and Amsterdam, as certain folks say, no, you're just not going to take it all. But that's the point. The elites let this go forever. And that is what they're trying to do in Texas. Now, here's the good news. On March 3rd, we have a voice in what happens. Here's the great thing. That is a convergence point. That is a forcing function. On the 3rd of March, Sharia law goes on the ballot in the state of Texas. We've got these converging forces. Abbott has done a great job in at least identifying the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE as terrorist organizations. By the way, just as an aside, the New York Post lead story this morning is that they've come up with who's financing the ICE resistance in Minneapolis, in New York, and Sanctuary. They've done this detailed study. And surprise, surprise, who is it? Thank you. It's George Soros and Indivisible and CARE. And CARE. That is the Red-Green Alliance. This is the neo-Marxist with the jihadist. And that's the pincer move they think that's going to take down this country. Well, they're about to find out Texas is not New York City. Okay? No way. No way. No way. No way. When John Ford, I don't know if you guys are fans of Westerns. Everybody here seen The Searchers, right? The movie? Right. Greatest Western ever made, by far. Made by John Ford, our greatest director of Westerns, with John Wayne, Ward Bond, Natalie Woods as one of her first roles. The story, he had the book and the novel. The story is the search for the Holy Grail. Told through the thing of a posse and a Comanche raid for two little girls. It's the search for the Holy Grail. He had to tell the story of the Holy Grail, which is the search for that, is one of the foundational myths of Western civilization. And where did he place it? Black screen when it comes on. Texas, 1868. Right after the Civil War. Right? He told the entire story there. Now, if truth be told, he did go to West Texas where the event actually happened and said, this is such a mythical story with so many, big themes. He went to Monument Valley actually to shoot it. But it didn't matter. Nobody knew Monument Valley stood in for West Texas until 40 or 50 years later of all Ford's Westerns. Why? Because he understood, as the jihadists understand, how important symbolism is. Everything they do is symbolic. Ford put it in West Texas and shot it in Monument Valley, but told the definitive story of Western civilization here because he knew the history of Texas. And what Ford used to say, when the legend becomes fact, print the legend. That's where we are today. This invasion of Western civilization, they've taken the great cities. They've taken Paris. They've taken London. They've taken New York City. They've taken Chicago. And you know what? They would give them all up for Texas. They would give them all up for Texas. That's why it's you here, and we've got enough people to fight this. And we have the great benefit of having a forcing function. March 3rd, it's on the ballot, right? It's incumbent upon us to do something with it. Now, I will tell you, at War Room, we have covered 2 intensely Texas events over the last year or 2. One is the impeachment of Ken Paxton, right, from the floor. And the other is the redistricting effort Brian Harrison, the Patriot Mobile team, led, right? Not only were our audience numbers huge, but we had a huge international audience. Why? People are interested in Texas. They understand Texas is where the future is being built. They understand that, and I say this as a Virginian, that it is the first among equals of the great states of the Union. And they understand that. That's why March 3rd and the convergence on March 3rd and having a sweeping victory on March 3rd, that night, it will be the #1 story throughout the world that we put on a ballot a proposition to prohibit Sharia law in the state of Texas. Can we do that? Can we get 80%? I can't hear you. Are you prepared to fight for this state? Are you prepared to fight for your country? As Texas goes, so goes the nation. As the nation goes, so goes the world. The jihadists understand it. The smartest money over in the Gulf Emirates understand it. Why in the hell you think they're in Houston and in north of Dallas? And they come in on cat's paws. It's not good enough. We know who you are, we know what you are, and we know what you're trying to accomplish, and it is not going to happen in the jewel of the crown of the union of this republic. And how do I know we can win? Because let's go back to Soros and CARE. George Soros put almost $400 million over this in Texas in the last 10 years to turn Texas blue. How did that turn out? Did not Donald Trump not win by 14 points? Hell, Ted Cruz won by 11 or 12. That, grassroots, 100%. That's what it's here. We don't need, this is true populism. We don't need any leader to step in here. This is leaderless, as it should be. I'm announcing now that starting Monday at 6 o'clock, we'll start at 6 o'clock, but on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday to start off 3 days a week, building to 5 as we get into February, we're going to have War Room Texas, okay? War Room Texas. First off, I got to get all the grassroots on the show the next couple of weeks because they will not believe you folks, right? You're tough as boot leather. But that's part of the deep part of the spirit of Texas. Right? People here love this state like nothing else. It is endearing. I've known this for years, right? Not just the football and the culture. It's in the cussedness, right? And the stick-to-itiveness, the toughness. You can't be beaten. If we're focused, you cannot be beaten. And we don't need any big leader to come here. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about every person. We don't need another person between now and March 3rd. Now, we're going to have others. The big opposition here is going to be the people making money, right? It's just like the revolution. The revolution started off, Mike Flynn and General Flynn got the new committees on correspondence. They're putting that together. General Flynn talks about all the time. Things started off about 10% of the folks. Eventually got to maybe a third. He had third Tories, and he had third in the middle, and the Tories were making money. You got Tories in this state. You have collaborationists in this state. They're making big money on the invasion of this state by Islamists. That has to be exposed. It has to be held accountable. It has to be stopped. And we're going to do it. We're going to shame them every day. This show is your show. It's going to be co-hosted by a Texan, and eventually it's going to be hosted by Texans. You know why? You guys are tough enough and smart enough to figure it out. Somebody, the great Lance Walnut, who is Lance here? I've learned so much. I didn't quite understand I was a Christian nationalist until I started following you. Now, really, I said, I'm whatever this guy is. I'm one of those. And I want to thank Real America's Voice. I mean, hell, we got War Room in the morning. You got the Charlie Kirk show. And they gave Charlie Kirk a shot when he just started his podcast. You got Pasovic. You got bowling in the afternoon. You got Lance. You got Stinchfield at night, right? It's a huge platform. Hell, you're going to have Glenn Beck here in a moment. Glenn Beck's platform. You got General Flynn's platform. We got enough media platforms to do this. We got enough content to do it. We got enough interesting, tough characters from Texas to do this that people are finding mesmerizing. It's, do we have the will to do it? Do you have the will? This fight's been brewing for decades. In New York, they blinked and they let a Ugandan Marxist jihadist take it. Now he's talking big talk. He's going to do this. He's a sanctuary city. President Trump, I don't like giving you advice because you're on a roll. But we're grabbing Mondura. We're grabbing guys all over the place. Go to New York City and get Mandami. Roll him up. Check his papers. His papers are all screwed up. He's not a naturalized citizen, lied on everything. He's part of jihadist groups. Go to New York, go to Minneapolis and get that Mayor Fry. He's an instigator. Get Walls. Walls going to call it the National Guard to go against that guy. Roll up Walls. I'm going to tell you one thing. I don't think any of those brothers could handle a federal prison. Although Fry might enjoy it. And I had to go there. I couldn't hold myself back. This has been brewing for a long time, but we got to face it now. We have to lance the boil right now. We can't let it go on. March 3rd is providential. We drive everything to that. We get Abbott to put some meat on the bones of what these terrorist groups are and what we're going to do with them, right? We do that. Brian Harrison's got a great idea. We start holding hearings in the Texas legislature, and then we call a special session, right, to implement these laws. And on March 3rd, with the help of Glenn Beck's platform and General Flynn and Real America's Voice and all the great hosts there in the War Room, Texas, on that night, we're going to gather. We're going to gather, and you're just not showing the Islamists here in Texas, but you're going to show their collaborators, and you're going to show them in Riyadh, in Abu Dhabi, and Doha, and in Turkey, Constantinople. Did I say that? We have not done this thing right until it's called Constantinople, right? And Hagia Sophia is a cathedral again. A basilica, not a mosque. Oklahoma, in fact, the the senator there reminds me tonight, providentially, that roughly 100 years ago on March 3rd, I think March 3rd, 1924, the Ottoman Caliphate fell and was dissolved, which had controlled the Holy Land and the two holy sites, Mecca and Medina. They held Syria, Jordan, the British Army told them. They went back and they collapsed on March 3rd, 1924. So 102 years later, in this very state, we're going to tell them, take your Sharia law and shove it. Folks, can we do this? Can we do this? Can you do it for every pioneer that came to this state and made something of it? The giants on the shoulders of whom you stand? Can you do that? Are we going to be like Europe and just let Paris go and let Brussels go and let London go? Are you prepared to fight? New York City, they gave up. In Chicago, they've given up. In Minnesota, not just they've given up, they've turned on the United States up there. These big cities in the north have all cratered. The big cities of Europe are cratered. Is Texas going to crater? Is Texas going to crater? Are you prepared to fight for your state? Are you prepared to fight for your country? Are you prepared to fight for the Judeo-Christian West? And are you prepared to fight for the Christian nation, the Republic of the United States of America?
Did I tell you it's an honor to work for that guy or what? Amazing. Glenn, it's an honor to be a partner with you as well and all you do and putting this whole thing together. I'm going to hand the podium over to you and introduce Glenn.
Well, I don't want to follow.
No,
I don't want to follow.
How do you
him.
follow that?
All right. Well, hey, listen. You know what? I just get to introduce the next guest and the next speaker. He's a dear friend. I love him. I love his wife, Tanya. And, you know, I think I know why they love us is because we put God first in everything we do. And we are, yeah, please. He is at the helm of Patriot Mobile, and we're his stewards, and we try to glorify him in everything we do. And you know what? I think that's really why you love us. And I will tell you this right now. I will bow to one God, the creator of this universe, the one that came here in the form of a man and walked on this earth, died for us, and through his death and resurrection, gave us the opportunity to join him just by believing in him. So look, that is the way I live. So before I go there, I want to just say one thing. I get to introduce Glenn, but before I do, I'm going to read something. My wife wrote it, and if I don't read it, I will never do this properly. Okay, well, I'm not going to read it because don't have my glasses. Well, I don't even have glasses. Anyway, we sponsor Mercury One, and I know JP, I know Suzanne is over here somewhere, and Elijah, and you're supposed to be bringing stuff out. But anyway, we support Mercury One, and we do so in a way that we, out of this, a simple cell phone, we're activists. And we're funding our activism through a cell phone bill. And we donate to causes that align with your values. And if you're not a customer, you should be. I won't say that again. But we're working with a movie. It's called Abbygate. And I think we're going to show a clip of Abbygate. Is that correct, guys? Well, if it is, start rolling and I'll step away. If not, I want you guys to check it out. And we'll get it to you in your hands. It's one of these most incredible movies that is written about Abbygate in Afghanistan, where a bunch of people were killed, 13 U.S. Marines and Americans. And it was through the absolute neglect and the Biden administration. They didn't care. And they left our people over there. They give $80 billion worth of equipment away to the hands of those that want to hurt us. And so, hey, I'm not going to go any further. I want to introduce Glenn because he is, in my opinion, one of the greatest patriots that has been talking about Sharia law and anti-Islamification for a decade. And so it was such a great honor. I called him the other day and I said, hey, we want to, you're smiling. I said, hey, we would love for you to come over and help us. And he goes, if you were watching my show, you would know that I was here in Texas. And I was like, Glenn, we're running a business, you know? Jenny makes me go to these meetings. And so anyway, I will not sit back any further and hold your time because I know that you're going to get that. We have been lit up with Geert and Bannon, and now the closer, right? The hammer is coming out. The wonderful, God-loving Glenn Beck.
Holy mother. Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I have to tell you, he didn't tell me that I was going to be following Geert and Steve Bannon. Thank you. I owe you one. The only thing that mattered better is you stood up here for 2 minutes, so your expectations went back way down. I am so glad to hear. Look, I am not a leader of movements. I honestly, many times, I just wonder, America's standards are so low. That's how I got to the position that I'm in. But I am thrilled to be here tonight because I want to talk to you about some history and some things that we know from the past. Also a conversation that I had today that is remarkable with a very dear friend of mine, Edwin Black, if you know who he is. He is probably the preeminent scholar on the Holocaust, and he's the guy who wrote IBM and the Holocaust, and IBM sued him, and he quickly shut that down because they didn't realize who they were dealing with. He had all the facts and figures, and he gave me a message today that I found extremely disturbing from him that I think you need to know about, and it goes right to exactly to the cause. The other thing I want to start with, about 5 months ago, I was getting a blessing before I was speaking somewhere, and something downloaded to me, and I have not felt, rarely have I felt anything as powerful, and I know when God speaks, at least to me, and I know what that feels like, and next month I'll be 62 years old, and I have struggled my whole life to know, what am I supposed to do? Why am I here? And in this blessing, I really felt, I know why I was born. And God was very clear, and I have not said this on the air in this way, and you're the first to hear, but I feel it's important because I think God is going to speak to a lot of us, and we need to listen to him. Everything that I have done in my life, including collecting what is now the third largest library of American documents, only behind the National Archives and the Library of Congress, that came on a prompting years ago of clay pots. And I didn't know what that meant until I realized that our sacred American scriptures were going to be destroyed if we didn't stand up. And so I should collect them. And when I thought about our sacred American scriptures, I immediately thought of the Dead Sea Scrolls and how they were pushed into the back of a cave and set in clay pots for a couple thousand years because they were coming to destroy them. And even on that, it felt so clear to me. But I know there's a chance that I get up to the other side and I'm like, the clay pot thing, I figured that one out. And I know God could be like, no, there was a sale at Pottery Barn, Glenn. I tried. This one I know. In that blessing, I felt there are two things that are going to come facing the world. One is Islamism and Sharia law. Two is the hunting of Jews again. I was born to stand against those things and ring a bell. I ring a bell. Those things are coming. They are coming beyond your imagination, and you must do everything you can to fortify yourself so you can stand and stand counted on his side. On his side. Let me show you some things in history that the world just blew by, and we thought after it was all over that it would never happen again, and we swore to one another, never again. I met with a guy, his doctorate from Oxford University. He was a doctor of ideas, and I thought that was the great. I was like, I don't even know what that is, but let's do some surgery. What's that? Doctor of ideas is a guy who can take things that seem disconnected and bring them together and say, no, it goes in this order, and this is how that idea came, and that idea actually belongs over here. And I was talking to him, I spent the day with him, and I just loved it, and I finally got enough courage to say, I have an idea. I think I can tell you not only how this whole Jew hatred and Holocaust began the first time, and I can take you through all 19 Holocausts in history, and I can not only tell you where they started, how the thread went, but I can tell you where the next one's gonna happen. And he said, no, you can't. I said, would you give me 25 minutes? 45 minutes later, he told me I should get my doctorate on that because he believed it was true. Let me give you the highlights. Start with Abraham. I believe in good and evil. I believe God and Satan exist. Start with Abraham. God says, you are my people. I am going to take this small little tribe, fewer than this room, and I am going to have you multiply more than the stars in the heaven. And you will be a powerhouse on earth. And I am God, and I am declaring that. I am choosing you. Now, if I'm Satan, all I have to do to thwart God is to make him break promises. God cannot break his promise. God must be true in all things that he says. So if I'm Satan and I'm arrogant, I'm like, all I got to do is kill the people in this room? That's easy. How many of them are there? I can kill these people. And he tries, and he fails, and he tries, and he fails, and he tries, and he fails. And each time more are killed. Each time it gets closer, but each time it fails. And every time one of these roundups, these programs, these holocausts happen, it jumps. It jumps from one place to another, and it drags some of it together. You know, the yellow star, wearing the yellow star, that wasn't from Germany. They didn't do that. That was from the program and the Holocaust that happened in Persia years before. All of these things were gathered one after another, and they're dragged along, and Satan goes back into hiding and withdraws after the failure, and then he comes back and he repackages. Do you know who made the Nazi uniform? Hugo Boss. Check your labels, gentlemen. Hugo Boss made the snappy black uniform. Why did they go to Hugo Boss? Because they wanted it to look. Satan doesn't come scary. He comes dressed in Hugo Boss. every time it drags and it mutates and it looks different and it learns the society, and it's like, I've got to present myself this way this time because they'll never see it this time. The last time the Holocaust happened, it jumped. Right at the very end, it jumped and it planted itself, and it has been waiting, and it is alive today. Let me give you some things that we got the last time. First of all, America is nothing but a slave state, right? All we did was exploit African Americans. It was our fault. We were the ones. This is a sword from one of the tribes that was selling the white man the slaves. They were rounding them up. This is a Muslim sword from Africa and the slave trade. And today, while our country, while the Western civilization had said, no more of this, no more slavery, you are not allowed to sell men and women and children in the open market, Islam is still selling men, women, and children in the open market. It is an evil ideology. Political Islam is an evil ideology. And I'm a guy who just raised money to help elect a Muslim in Congress out of Arizona named Judy Zatzer. Zudi has, I've known him for 20 years. He is a Muslim. You know him, Frank. He is a Muslim who is one of the first people to stand up and say, this is an evil ideology. Political Islam is death to the Western culture. We cannot paint people with broad brushstrokes. We must know our enemy and be able to articulate it clearly. Otherwise, you will be duped by people in Hugo Boss. Let me show you this is our first foreign war was against the Muslims. You knew that, right? The Barbary Pirates. The Barbary Pirates. 2/3 of our national expenditure every year was going to pay the bribes of the Barbary Pirates. Because what were they doing? They were just boarding any ship. Because if you're an infidel, that's ours. Oh, and we can either kill you or we'll turn you into a slave. Our Marines are called leathernecks because when they went into battle against the Barbary pirates, they put leather around their necks so they couldn't be beheaded in battle. That's why they're called leathernecks. And Jefferson, when he ended it, he said, because there was no stomach for it. When he ended it, he warned the nation, you must understand this ideology. It is our first foreign war, and if you don't understand what we're dealing with, it will be our last foreign war. Thomas Jefferson. He urged people not to listen to sound bites, they didn't have them at the time. He urged people not to listen to blowhards like me, but to do your own homework. And he urged people to read something. He urged that this book be printed. This is an original from Jefferson's time. This is an English copy printed in America of the Quran. And in it, this is a first edition copy, there's a note to the reader. To the reader. Before you read this, you should know what you're about to get into. And in the end of it, it said, you shall find this, much of what you find in this book. You will wonder that such absurdities have infected the best part of the world. And you will avouch that the knowledge that is contained in this book will render our laws contemptible. Be careful. Every American, he said, should read this book. Don't take the highlights. Don't take my words for it. Read it and understand it. We are hopefully, maybe, if we're very fortunate and if God wills it, and we are humble enough and pray and he still listens to us at all, maybe the people of Iran will be free. I told my staff this morning, prepare. The world could be in total chaos by Monday when we come back to work, or we could be looking at a free Iran and free Persian people by Monday. Most people don't understand. I was younger, obviously, when I feel like Methuselah lately, but I was much younger when the Shah left. And I really didn't understand what was going on. I really thought that this was a big religious movement and that people really wanted, this religion of Islam. And no, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. Here's what happened. Marxists came into Iran. Marxists started to undermine everything. Marxists and Islamists began working together to destabilize the country, overthrow the Shah. And the United States of America under Jimmy Carter said, meh, okay. What happened in Iran is what is happening in the United States of America. Marxists, communists, socialists, anarchists, and Islamists are working to destabilize the Western world. They are working together to overthrow Western civilization, and their last stop is the United States of America. And as Steve just said, the crown jewel is Texas. There were lots of different things all kinds of plans the Russians, the Soviets had made to invade the United States. Not one of their invasion plans included coming across the border into Texas. You know why? Because they knew Texans knew who they were. They knew Texans understood the power and the grace and the goodness of this country. And they also knew Texans were armed and knew how to use weapons. At the end of World War II, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, he saw this figure rising up in Jerusalem, in Germany, and he thought, this guy is amazing. This guy is incredible. This guy has the plan for not just Germany, but the entire Middle East. He went and he presented himself to the Germans and to Hitler. And in our museum, we have original photos of the two of them together as they met. He went and he got the plans of the concentration camps and the death camps and the final solution. It's excited him so much, he said he wanted to build those all throughout the Middle East. That finally the Jew would be burned out of the Middle East. Persia, its name was changed to Iran. What does Iran mean in Persian? Aryan. We are your Aryan nation. The Grand Mufti brought the plans back. The Grand Mufti is the guy who started, was it Hamas or Hezbollah? One of the really, what is it? PLO. All of this is all tied together. When I talked to the doctor of ideas, I said, I can tell you right where it's coming from. It's going to start with the mullahs in Iran. When they say they are going to burn the Jew in the fire of the Islamic fury, they mean it. They mean it literally. Because that Islamic fury was corralled and shaped the last time it jumped. It jumped with the Grand Mufti and planted itself in the Middle East. And we dismiss it at our peril, because Jews are only the first. Christians are next. 2 uniforms. This is a uniform of the Muslim Nazi SS. They wore the fez. The fez, which you probably can't see this, I don't know if the camera can catch it, but see the writing inside. It identifies where it was made. Dachau. That uniform was made by prisoners in Dachau to dress them in snappy uniforms to round up more people to be in Dachau. That was worn by a survivor of Auschwitz. That was worn by a man who wasn't Jew. He has a triangle on his jacket and on the hat and on the pants. And it appears today to be pink, but it was actually red, which means he was either a communist or a capitalist. He died recently. We bought it from his family. He still lived in Poland after all these years. They didn't want it anymore. We wanted it to remind people this happens over and over and over when you don't want to look at it anymore. Somebody gave me, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and an alcoholic gave me the best advice ever when I first sobered up. He said, Glenn, when you least expect it, expect it. I said, what does that mean? He said, you'll know it when you see it. Expect it when you least expect it. And it happened. It happened just like that. Something happened in my day early on in my sobriety. I don't remember what it was. But everything made sense to me that, yes, it was personally, it was absolutely reasonable to go and have a drink today. And I almost went, and then I heard his voice, when you least expect it, expect it. Because your brain knows you really well. It knows all the little paths. Let me say that another way. Satan knows you really well. And it knows all the little paths that will make something sound absolutely reasonable. May I ask and request something? And I was so glad that Steve said this. And I think Geert said it as well. But I have heard members in our own administration call this a Christian nation. We are not a Christian nation. We are a Judeo-Christian nation. Those two go hand in hand and must never be separated. You cannot take the Jew out of Jesus. You cannot take the Old Testament and separate it from the New Testament. They build on one another. This is a book that is in every hospital in the world. This is an original copy. And you'll see, I don't know if you can't probably see it, but it's signed. And in some of the photographs or some of the drawings, you'll actually see it signed, and then after the signature, it says SS. Everything we know about hypothermia, everything we know about the human body, everything we know about surgery, everything. This book is in every hospital and every classroom. And we debated whether we should use it or not. Some said we should never use it, and others said then they will have all died in vain. But this book, the guy who was doing the experiments to be able to get the information on this book, he actually died. He was in the same prison cell with Dietrich Bonhoeffer. How did the guy who was putting people up in airplanes to see when your heads pop, how did the guy who was taking hot water and cold water and putting it on Jews and see how fast they freeze, how did that guy end up in the same jail cell with Dietrich Bonhoeffer? Because he shared this information. And when Hitler found out, he said, we are not trying to save the world. We're trying to save Germans. And so because he felt, this sick mind that did this felt this should be known so for all mankind, died, thank God, but died because that's not what it's for. It's for our race. This is one of the most popular books. You'll find this on the top 10, if you will, on Amazon in the Middle East over and over again. From time to time, it'll just pop up. Right after 9/11, it was the #1 best-selling book for a long time in the Middle East. This is the Arabic version of Mein Kampf. We read it and say, how did people not know? How did people not know? It's right here in black and white. They said it. How did people not know? Hugo Boss told you, and it's not really like that. But they read this as an instruction manual. My good friend Edwin Black, this is his book, War Against the Weak. This is the book on how they were killing children in Germany, and quite honestly, how they're doing it again in Canada, and everybody seems to yawn. The 5th leading cause of death now in Canada is medical assistance in dying, MAID. The 5th leading cause, and they're about to open it up for teenagers. If you are depressed, you can apply for medical assisted suicide. They are now talking and debating in the next 18 months about if you are mentally handicapped. Does any of that sound familiar? But this time it's cloaked as compassion. The scariest people in Germany were not wearing the black uniforms, they were wearing the white coats. It's interesting. At first, people laughed. Dr. Fauci is not a laugh line. I want to leave you with a couple of things. First, what my friend Edwin Black told me today. I've known him for 20 years. He is a serious scholar. He is not somebody who goes off half-cocked. In fact, I have been ringing this bell for 25 years going, Holocaust, Holocaust, Holocaust. We're planting all of these seeds really bad. And he would tell me all the time, Glenn, there are 8 steps to the Holocaust. We're only at 4. And even, I know, and even if we were at 6 or 7, it doesn't mean that 8 will happen. We pay attention and we know where we are on the chart. So we make sure DEFCON 2, DEFCON 1, we know where we are on the chart. And we pay attention to it so it doesn't end there. But it doesn't have to end there. He has told me that for 25 years. Today, he told me, the Holocaust is now in its planning stages, and there is no way to stop it. It is happening, and it will happen again, this time all over the world. This is a dear friend who I admire for his knowledge of history and the fact that he is so buttoned up. We are facing unbelievable times. Every day, I wake to either unbelievable evil and horror or miracles. Every single day. Lord, what are we going to see today? Glenn, today, in the next few days, you're going to either see Islamists crush, or you're going to see the Persian people set free. And it will be up to each of us in our own way. God works miracles, but he does require more than spectators. We are not saved by our works. But I will tell you, I don't think he's going to recognize a lot of us if we're sitting on our hands at this time in our lives. Raoul Wallenberg is one of my heroes. You know, I start to say this and I think of why I was born, and I was born to tell you these things, and it's why my whole childhood makes sense. And my love for people like Raoul Wallenberg makes sense, so I can be prepared to tell you who you should strive to be. Raoul Wallenberg was a guy who didn't have to be involved. He's from Sweden. There's a statue of him that no American knows. I did an interview with an autobiographer, a biographer of Raoul Wallenberg years ago, and she came to America, and there's this beautiful book on him. I mean, he makes Dietrich Bonhoeffer look like a wimp, and that's saying something. During the interview, she broke down in tears with me, and I said, "I'm sorry, did I say something?" Because I was asking her a question. "I'm sorry, did I offend you?" She said, "No. I've been on a book tour all over the world and all throughout America, and you are the only journalist who knows who he was. He came from a family like R.H. Macy. He was wealthy. His family they owned a huge department store, huge industry. He had no reason to get in. States came to him and said, something is happening with the Jews. We need you to accept an ambassadorship of your country. We need you to go to another country. And we need you to tell us what's going on with the Jews. And he did. And we didn't listen. And he gathered more evidence. And he went to England. And they didn't listen. So he gathered more evidence. And he went to Switzerland. And they didn't listen. They listened, but they didn't want to believe. He finally went back and said, I don't need anybody to listen. I'm here. And he began making the Schutzpass. This basically says, you're now a Jew and you're a citizen of my country. You're no longer, you don't have to worry about it. You're under the protection of my king. Now, remember, his king was under the direction of the Nazis at the time. They had been invaded. His king called him as he was making these and saying, you don't need to wear that yellow star anymore. You don't need to fear. You're under the protection of my king. His king called and said, what are you doing? You're going to get us all killed. He said, you want me to stop? You come here yourself and stop me. I have a typewriter. I have a photographer. I'm taking their pictures. I'm making these Schutzpasses. You want me to stop? Come stop me yourself. He took his wealth and he bought an entire city block next to the embassy of his country. And then he would go to the train station as they were loading the Jews on with Schutzpasses. And he'd stuff them through the cracks of the train. And he'd say, everybody, pass these amongst yourselves. Everyone, take one. And then he would run to the front of the train and he'd say, stop the train. You have the wrong people. These people belong to me. He saved over 100,000 people. He is forgotten in history because America forgot him. He was last seen running into the arms of the Soviets as they came in to Budapest. One of the last people, I have one of the last Schutzpasses from a woman that he helped get out, and she begged him, please, Mr. Wallenberg, come with us. They're coming. The Russians are coming. Please come with us. You've got to go. And he said, there are too many left to save. And the Russians can't be as bad as the Germans. We don't know how his story ended. Thank you. We don't know how his story ended. There's three ways. One, he ran into the arms of the Soviets and he was shot on the spot. Highly unlikely because there was orders from Stalin. Stalin wanted to interrogate him himself. Second version, he died under torture in Moscow with Stalin. And the most horrific, to me at least, is that he died in a prison camp at hard labor in 1972. The first president that demanded an answer, what happened to Raoul Wallenberg, was Ronald Reagan. I want to challenge you to find someone in history that inspires you. Find somebody that you say, I want to be more like that. When the crap hits the fan, I'm going to be like that man. Because if you don't do it now, you will not do it. If you don't prepare now, you will fail. Character isn't made in hard times. Character is revealed in hard times. Build it today. Model yourself after somebody that you think has done amazing things. And the great news is there are millions of examples. Find that individual. Keep a picture on your desk. Put it in your car. Put it in your wallet. Whatever you see every day, put it on your phone. Put that picture or the pictures of the people that you want to be more like in front of you all the time. It's like a counsel. When tough times come, you'll know exactly how to behave because you will look at your counsel and say, I know what they would do. One last challenge. It was in the 1500s when the Ottoman Empire came. And they came to Malta. They just had to go through Malta. I don't even really know where Malta is. They just had to get through Malta. Ships with 40,000 Ottomans ready to plow through Malta and conquer Europe. All they had to do was go through an unfinished fort, the fort of St. Elmo's. They just had to get past 600 soldiers and 130 knights. 40,000. They make, honestly, I know I'm saying this in Texas, so I know this is blasphemy, but it makes the guys at the Alamo, they look like pussies compared to these guys. Okay? 600 soldiers, 130 knights. That's it. Wave after wave after wave coming in. And those knights, as they saw them on the ships coming in, imagine the view. It's just nothing but wall-to-wall Ottomans coming. And they're all looking at each other going, holy crap. They knew they were going to die. They didn't send for reinforcements. They sent some people away and said, go fortify. We'll hold them as long as we can. Expecting to die within a couple of days. Under constant siege for over 30 days, they killed 10,000 Ottomans. Every single one of them died. But you know how they died? They refused to bow to the Ottoman Empire. They refused to bow to Sharia law. When they came in and they finally found all of the knights, they had taken their broadswords and shoved them into the ground and draped themselves over the cross of the broadsword. So they were still standing and still upright. They refused to bow. They had a few things that I want you to take with you. They had a code among them. Faith before life. First, loyalty to God, not my survival. Loyalty to God. 2, honor above outcome. We live in a society where the ends justify the means. Stand firmly against that. Honor above outcome. Courage without illusion. I am not here to tell you this is going to be easy. I am not here to tell you Donald Trump's going to save us. I am not here to tell you some won't fall, that Europe is going to be fine, that Texas will even be fine. I'm telling you, it could be the fight of our lives. I am telling you that people generations down the road, unless Jesus comes, if we still have historians, 100 years from now, they will write about you. There will be someone like me who will bring an artifact from Texas and say, this is how they did it. This is who we should be like. We live in extraordinary times, courage without illusion, and brotherhood unto death. No man fought alone. We're in this together. We will fight together. We will pray together. We will love together. And so help me God, we will survive together. Thank you. God bless.
I'll tell you what a night. Glenn, as expected, does a fabulous job. Steve Bannon, Geert, and I'll tell you one common theme, and then we'll end it, and a big thanks to Patriot Mobile, of course. But notice Glenn talked about Texas. Geert talked about Texas. And Steve Bannon talked about Texas. About this is the place where we stand and fight. They don't go to Minnesota and talk like that about the people there. It's on you, folks. And I know you're fighters just for being here. Again, Glenn Story, Jenny, the whole crew here, everybody, all the speakers, everybody that's serving, the law enforcement officers, the people that served our food, a big applause to all of you. And to my friends watching on Real America's Voice, this is the only network that would carry this live for as long as we do. That's the commitment and partnership with Patriot Mobile and Real America's Voice of taking our country back. We're going to return to regular programming at RAV. And thank you for sticking with us here. And folks, God bless all of you. Take what you learned here tonight. Take it to the streets. Tell your friends. Tell your family. And Texas is it, baby. And we're going to win always. Thank you.